I'm sure we would love for everyone to do. Some people out there do have to still work, but I hope everyone at least tried to have a relaxing, enjoyable, and safe weekend as well in Philly and beyond. Welcome to the Tuesday edition. Welcome back. It's good to be back. I'm Charles Ellis, and I'm your host, executive producer, also creator of Reality Check here on WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM, also wordradio.com, Word TV, Word app as well on your smartphone, tablet device. So let's get into it. Let's get back into the groove of things, which for some of us, especially when you have those nice 3 or 4 day weekends, can be a little bit hard to do. But let's open up the phone lines, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. So about to get a little serious here on Reality Check. I know folks, some folks were out there probably doing a little cookout action, and now you're gonna have to get now it's back to getting your daily dose of politics, public policy, public affairs, getting into the serious stuff here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free. It is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Also, a little bit later on this week, we have Philadelphia City Council back in. We will be going back into City Council live mode this Thursday. City Council coming back, or full sessions of City Council coming back this week on Thursday. So we should be having that later on this week, live broadcast, gavel to gavel coverage of the City Council of the whole meeting. So that's going to happen this Thursday. So you know what that means, and that starts. So we, always hope City Council gets things started. They'll still be virtual come Thursday, as far as we know. But we'll be looking at that and keeping a close eye on what City Council has in store for the city, what sorts of plans they have on a wide range of issues, and some real serious issues, including first and foremost, top of the agenda, obviously, is violence in the city. Still, a lot of concerns about, or a feeling, there was even this editorial, the editorial for the Philadelphia Inquirer last week. They were saying that the City Hall, from the mayor's office to City Council, just not urgent enough on the issue of violence, just not doing it. So, not really kind of setting the tone for urgency. So I'm not the only one saying it. Like, Philadelphia Inquirer editorial page was like, yo, just you guys have got to turn it up a notch in terms of just the response to the city's violence, the homicide rate, just the overall violence rate in the city, just not looking good at all. In fact, it's 31% above where we were this same time last year. 310 homicides as of today, or as of the most recent Philadelphia homicide report. 310 homicides, making that 31% above where it was this same time last year after Labor Day. So, obviously a lot to do there. And then when you look at overall total violent crime offenses, now total violent crime offenses show us about increasing at about 8.4% over the last 28-day period. So there's been an over 8% spike in violent crime over the last 28 days, at least according to the Philadelphia Police Department. There have been so far nearly 2,400 aggravated assaults by gun, which means 2,400 victims in the city of Philadelphia, 2,400 victims of gun violence so far in the year 2020 in Philadelphia. So if that's not a crisis, that's not should have emergency bells ringing loudly coming out of City Hall and all over the city. I don't know what can, right? So none of us do. But anyway, that's we'll see what they'll be talking about. Obviously, you got that. You got evictions. People having a lot of worry about evictions and the expiration of eviction moratoriums. And so we had Councilwoman at Large Helen Gim on last week talking about evictions and trying to take some immediate decisive action there with respect to that, evictions, the financial health of the city, and just how, particularly in pandemic, how the city's responding to pandemic. Just a whole array of issues, obviously. Then, you've got a certain basketball team with the gall to ask for a tax break during the pandemic to build a stadium, asking for a tax break to build a brand new stadium in the middle of pandemic. Like, you're gonna throw that out there? Like, really? Okay. Like, yeah, you don't need. Yeah, y'all should have got your butts kicked out of the playoffs. like the, like really, the karma on that. Like, really? Come on, Sixers. Like in the middle of a pandemic, then you on like, hey, we need let's build a $4 billion stadium. Would love to get a $2 billion tax break from the city on that. Like the goal, like yeah, they should have not like went further into the playoffs for that. But anyway, that's obviously being bantered about. So there are a number of issues that are here to make Philadelphia politics this week and in the coming weeks lively for sure. We'll be covering that on City Council Live. We'll be doing the best we can to cover that on Reality Check as well. 215-634-8065, toll free. It's 866-361-0900. Feel free to call in. Let me know how everything went this weekend, how you're doing, how your family's doing, how your friends, your neighbors, everyone's doing. Did you have any special recipes, by the way, that you'd like to share with us? Because we tried to do a little bit of that on Thursday, excuse me, before we went into the Labor Day weekend, and kind of sharing some. We kind of kept it a little light for a moment there on Thursday, and so would love to, feel free to share a little bit of that. We can still keep it light on this Tuesday edition, or kind of let us know the issues that are impacting you, that are on your mind this morning as well. 215-634-8065, toll free. It is 866-361-0900. How much, where are people's heads at? Because I'm hearing it more frequently, conversations about vaccine, and how much people trust or don't trust an impending vaccine. All the experts that I'm talking to are saying that really, like, we're not going to have like a fully tested, fully reliable vaccine until later next year, probably like this same time next year, where you're probably, the science will dictate that it's probably safe to both mass distribute and even consider taking that vaccine. So there's a lot of pushback from the medical community, the science community, and we always got to follow the medicine and the science of what the professionals say. And also from even regulators themselves, the Food and Drug Administration, and even in the CDC, they're pushing back against their boss, against the president, in terms of trying to rush a vaccine. It's all political optics. He's trying to get, some sort of big win in and trying to shift things before we get to November 3rd. But, they're pushing back against the president, trying to push them or trying to bully them into releasing some kind of vaccine. And that's just not going to happen before the election. So, but just want to get your heads, because, it's people are really conflicted about, like, does it make me an anti-vaxxer, as they call them? Does it make me anti-vaccine? And you know how I feel about anti-vaccine. But I think it's reasonable to want to wait for the medical advice, for the reliable, credible medical, scientific advice about a vaccine before taking it, as opposed to just completely dismissing the idea or notion of vaccinations. I think that's when we start dwelling in the anti-vaccine territory. But, I think, we should be cautious, particularly us as Black people, and considering the history and the type of relationship we've had with the medical community, with the science community. We should be very, very extremely cautious about the timing of the vaccine. But, this is where, like, it's always helpful, and this is something we're working on right now to get more of this on here. And that's why sometimes we bring on the people like the National Medical Association, the National Black Doctors Association. We need more Black folks who are in the medical and science profession, the research profession, the people coming from our communities, people that, voices, credible, trained, certified voices from our community that we can trust on this particular issue. They'll all tell you that, just the overall notion of vaccine, whether it's for, simple stuff like a vaccine, getting vaccinated for, to guard against, just regular diseases that could, kind of blow up out of it, like measles and chickenpox or whatever, um, rubella, those are kind of those standard vaccines to provide that basic layer of public health protection that every civilized society needs, or every civic society needs. They'll tell you, yeah, you need that. But here in this is definitely, we have a right to be concerned and cautious with respect to a coronavirus vaccine, or the timing of a coronavirus vaccine and the politics around. We have every reason, and we don't want to be anyone's unwilling or unwitting guinea pigs. So absolutely. So, but we're going to continue to have that conversation here on Reality Check and try to bring on the experts when we find them. We do bring folks like, whether it's Dr. Nicolette Lewis-Saint or the president of the National Medical Association and others. They come on quite regularly or occasionally to talk to us about those issues. But those are like, credible, certified, trained, licensed Black folks, people coming from our community who are familiar, who have those same concerns, who also come from the same kinds of families, the same kinds of communities, and who can help navigate us through that. And that's going to be real important. Or like if it's someone like in Philly, local Black Doctors Consortium, like, okay, well, what are they saying as far as this vaccine issue is concerned? Those are the voices we should definitely, gravitate towards, and the kinds of voices that we trust. But it would be great to kind of get people's thoughts on that. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. People getting up maybe a little groggy this morning. People might have had a late night, a late drink, along with assaults on their digestive tracts with hamburgers and hot dogs, kielbasa sausages, and potato salad, and all sorts of other Labor Day delights, cookout delights. So I know some people may be getting up a little bit late and groggy this morning. So, but let's definitely have at it. 215-634-8065, toll free, 866-361-0900. Maybe it's just me. Okay. Was thinking about it. I saw this reported in the Washington Post this morning, and there is this 12-year-old student, Black student, 12-year-old Black student. I think it was his name's Ellie. Let me see. I think his name. What was his name? Yeah, Isaiah Elliott. He's out in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Was a 12-year-old boy, 12-year-old Black boy. He was in a virtual classroom, and he was playing with a toy gun, apparently, in the virtual classroom. It was a virtual art class. And he was playing with the toy gun. It was a Nerf gun that he was playing with on the video during the virtual art class. Well, once the once the school, I guess there was a stir from this kid seemingly having this toy gun while he's in the virtual art class. So they called the police on him. And so he was like suspended for 5 days. He's got a record now. It was a zombie hunter toy gun. I want to let's talk about this throughout the course of the show on and off, but it was an excessive reaction, a response from the school. And now this boy has, he's got this mark on his school disciplinary record. He's got a record with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. That's a bit excessive. But maybe it's just me. I'm a little old school about this. Like, I know the way, like, and I'm not saying just because I raised my kids this way, like everyone else should do it and copy it. Just as we were raising our kids, like, one, maybe not let your kids play with toy guns, especially out in public. That's just me. It's just, there's been an ongoing rule in the Ellison household. Like, even water guns, like, no, we don't do it. Just don't do it. Especially after Tamir Rice and what happened with that. And just don't do it publicly. Like, yeah, it was an excessive response from, and I wonder, like, okay, if the boy was, obviously that question is going to come up. The boy was white, they probably wouldn't have said anything. Although some schools in certain states and certain places like Colorado, that's where Columbine happened. They're going to be a bit sensitive to things like that to make sure there's not another threat over the horizon. But yeah, that question comes up, like, if it was a white kid would they have done the same thing? But I mean, what should the response have been like? I mean, first of all, I just think it's common sense. Like, don't have your kids if you're doing like, don't have your kids doing stupid stuff while they're doing virtual classes or remote learning as we're getting into a new school year. Like, keep track of your kids and make sure they're not doing like dumb stuff or knuckleheaded stuff. Like, it's hard. I know it's hard for everyone being in that kind of new environment and they're not in the classroom. But really keep track of your kids, especially our kids, and just set a standard. Like, set a standard, really. Because they're supposed, personally, me, the kids shouldn't have had a gun or a toy gun in the vert. You're supposed to be focused on art class. You're supposed to be focused on the studies, not on your toy, not on Zombie Hunter and a toy gun. Like that's just me. That's just me. And feel free to have that discussion. Anyway, let me go to George out of Center City, who's calling in for a reality check. George.
And doing this.
I can't hear you. What's up?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Well, how was your holiday? I hope it was wonderful, just like all the other URD listeners,
Yeah.
Especially the ones
yours
that
was too. Thank you.
Yeah, especially the people that had all them people come by their house and don't bring nothing and want to take 5 plates with them and 6.
I hear you. Right. That's another thing too. Bring stuff. Like, don't just and don't eat and run. Don't be that person. You eat and run. I can't stand that. Anyway, go ahead, George.
They only just take a plate for themselves. They take a plate for their neighbors and this and that. But that's here nor there, But Charles, and the one thing you got to realize, what you was just talking about, depending on the area. If you're in rural areas, guns is okay. That's a way of life with them. So, it's not about white or black when it comes to those guns in rural areas, So if it's in the city, it's something different. But out in the rural areas, guns is part of life.
But then the suicide rates is like out the roof. Like, and then they wonder. They wonder.
I mean,
like,
listen.
Y'all can go ahead and keep doing the gun thing, y'all, you want.
We can't.
Like, and then you wonder why, like, you got like homicide rates all high, 2,400 people getting shot in the city of Philadelphia. It's a correlation. I'm just saying. And people acting all stunned and surprised.
But
you got a city like Philadelphia, high adult illiteracy rates. Most of the kids in the school district can't read. And then you're gonna have them going around playing with toy guns. Like, and then you're gonna wonder. Then when they get older, like, and then you wonder why they, on top of the poverty and all the other stressors. But I'm just saying. I mean, I don't know why people be acting surprised sometimes. But go ahead.
Mr. Ellison, you in
my go ahead.
I mean, I ain't got that much, and
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. You're saying, but that ain't even the point of what I was saying. Is that that's all well and good, and we can go on that forever, But what I mainly called you about is what we've been talking about for the last 4 or 5 months, is that there's violence. You keep making excuses for the people in charge. If you look at Outlaw and look at the people around her, not one of them are qualified to be in the position they are. They are paper jocks, but they don't know what's going on in the street. Mm-hmm. And they're so stupid, the people around her. She come here with this gang mentality, thinking that it's gangs in the city of Philadelphia. She got them fools saying, oh, yeah, there's plenty of gangs here in the city of Philadelphia. It ain't no gangs. Gangs haven't been here since Jeremiah Shabazz and the Nation of Islam broke that crap up. Now, there's drug groups, but they ain't into that stupid stuff because nobody wants the feds breathing down their back with violence. So until you straighten out their eighth and race, you're going to keep having problems. Until you go up there on Caroline Road and make peace with McNesby and the Philadelphia Police Department, you're going to keep having problems. And the more we keep talking about what everybody's doing in other cities opposed to watching what's going on here, we're going to keep having problems. It's nowhere near, this violence is nowhere near what it's going to escalate to. You know why? You don't have people in position of qualifications to deal with. Everybody at that police administration building is dealing with paperwork. They don't know nothing about foots on the street. Now, anytime you take highway off the street, who is strictly about guns, that's all they're interested in. They ain't interested in your driver's license. They're not interested in if you kidnap somebody or drugs in the car. That's not their thing. They're only interested in guns. That's why when Ross was in there and it was a shooting, those guys go in the area, and the first thing they do is say, listen, we want the gun and we want the person, or we're going to shut it down. If you're making $10,000, $15,000 a night, why would you want it shut down? Now people ride around with guns on the seat. They don't even hide them. You know why? Police can't stop you. It's called stop and frisk. Okay, you don't want us to stop you? And you got to realize this, Charles, is that those guys are not going to risk their pension for somebody taking a picture, getting sued, and they lose their job and lose their pension. They're just not going to do it. But everybody keeps talking. You can't have it both ways. You can't say you don't want to stop and frisk. You can't say that you want to defund the police. All these things are anti-cop. Some of it should be. But you got to be careful what you wish for, because Kenny giving you everything you wish for, and it's not coming out like you thought. You wanted a woman, he gave you a woman. You wanted a black woman, he gave you a black woman. But you're forbidden to talk about her because she's a black woman. I don't care if she's qualified or unqualified, and it's not fair. She's not She's overwhelmed with the job. She don't have the support or nothing. She's McNesby's best friend. I mean, so don't tell me about all this craziness. And they can say I'm hating on. I don't even know the woman, so why would I hate her? I'm just telling you the truth. Don't make me no difference one way or the other who's at eighth and race, who's the commissioner or not. But the point is that people got to wake up and be careful what you ask for. Philadelphia's not like Portland. Philadelphia's not like Chicago. Philadelphia is Philadelphia, and you have to run Philadelphia and deal with the situation as is, Charles, and they won't do it. They refuse to do it, and Kenny's proven his point.
Let me let you go, Jordan. No, thanks for those comments. I gotta let you go. Let me, but we're gonna take a break. And thanks for calling again, man. Good to hear from you. Glad you had a good weekend. Let's take a break, and when we come back on the other side, we're supposed to be talking with Stephen Herzenberg, economist and executive director of the Keystone Research Center. We're going to talk about the state of the economy in Pennsylvania, especially amid COVID-19. Because remember, there is a pandemic, even though they want you to believe like it's left. Like it's not around. No, it's still here. You need to mask up, and it's still hitting the economy really hard. So we're going to talk about what's happening in Pennsylvania and some recommendations for getting the economy, getting working class, working people through it, working families through it. All right, let's take a break, and we'll be right back here on Reality Check.
Former Vice President Joe Biden.
We have to let people know we're listening, that we not only understand their struggle, but they understand the fact they deserve to be treated with dignity.
Senator Kamala Harris.
Part of the point of freedom is to be free from brutality, from injustice, from racism, and all of its manifestations.
But they're not getting a chance now.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have a real plan for police reform.
It means creating a national standard on use of force and conditioning federal funds for police departments on adoption of that standard. It's about giving the United States Department of Justice the subpoena power to investigate systemic police misconduct.
And that's what we're going to do. We're going to change that. I really mean it. I believe with every fiber in my being, we have such an opportunity now to change people's lives for the better. I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Listen live at WordRadio.com. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WordRadio.com, Word TV, Word app. We are back. We're waiting on Stephen Herzenberg, economist and executive director of Keystone Research Center. So we'll wait for him to get on. Meantime, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. While we wait on him, Muriel Revere Taylor, see what I'm talking about? Agrees. Never allow your children to play with no kinds of guns. People, I'm just, standards. And it was kind of like how I was growing up too. In my household, we were like, my folks weren't. I appreciate it, man. Definitely, really did. Let me go to Woody out of Winfield, who's calling in for a reality check.
Charles, I'm not going to hold you long, man, because sometimes people talk a lot, and they have a lot of good information, like I think his name is George that went off. He has good information.
Right.
However, I just, again, the commissioner, last year is totally different than 2020. I mean, in the world right now. So, there's a whole lot of things going on, but there's a whole bunch of kids that are raising themselves, and that all goes back to the literacy issue again. Their parents don't read, they don't read, so forth and so on. This is the issue. If we can figure out ways to pre-act before we react. We need to pre-act quickly on this reading issue, and I can guarantee you we will bring some things together. I played with guns when I was a kid. Mattel had to play guns, and boy, we had a good time. And you would put the mask on, and you would be the cowboy and the Indian and whatever you want to be. That coming up at my time, it was normal. You know, you had holsters. My father bought us guns and things like that. But we all played with the guns. We knew the guns were toys. We had no thinking about someone coming in or somebody hurting somebody else. That wasn't about that. It was about just having fun back in that day. Now, as it relates to the issue of this vaccine, see, God's already made a vaccine, and your antibodies, if you have a good immune system, fight it off. So I don't call that a real vaccine, but you take someone else's antibodies and put it in another person's antibody, in your body, and it creates your own antibodies. That is what actually helps you. So the vaccine, if you're waiting for somebody to mix up a pot of that, no, let God mix it. God made your immune system. If someone has a very strong immune system and somebody gives you some of those antibodies to give you a hot shot or make yours jump off, then okay, but that's still God, not man. When man is mixing up a whole bunch of drugs, that's what they want you to take. So if you get sick, keep that in mind, that you need to deal with that antibody thing if you had to take it at all. That's something I would have asked you to please do. So, like I said, the police commissioner, I wish he could get past this barbershop. I would love that, because Al Sharpton said on his own program, Politics Nation, when he interviewed the mayor, he said, make sure, Mayor, at the end of the interview, make sure you take her past Woody's barbershop. I would love to talk with her about the community and the neighborhood. If any day, or you could have her on your show, that would be great too. So I'm pushing for that, just to get you to get her interview with her, because I think she's a decent person. She's just in a bad year. 2020 is horrible. It's never been done like this anywhere else. This whole COVID thing is out of control. And if you can't read, back to that again, this whole city, #1 in poverty, 0% proficiency in reading. What else can someone do if they can't read? Your grandmother taught you that. Just imagine being in those types of shoes out there on the street, not able to get a job or fill out an application. I'm talking about you, Charles. You would be lost.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
So we need to do more in reading, and I think if I share that with her, I got some ideas I think would help. And she being a female, I know she would hear me. When that guy George Floyd called out, all those females all over this world came out because they understood that the man was done. There's nothing else he could do, but he called for his mom. Yeah. All right, Charles, I'm going to hold you up.
No, thank you, Woody. I appreciate those words. I appreciate that too. 2-1. Looks like we're not going to have Herzenberg. So let's just open up the phone lines. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. And I noticed like just a real quick technical glitch there, but anyway, we'll just we'll figure that out during break. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. We're just going to keep the phone lines open until we head into the 11 o'clock hour here on Reality Check. Thanks for those comments, Woody, and also George from earlier. Wanted to get a sense of just this issue about toy guns. I just feel like, and Woody does make a point. I mean, back then wasn't as big an issue. Maybe back in when some of us were growing up until the 80s, when just sort of this out of control, no code violence were the type of violence where you didn't resolve things just by knuckling up. Maybe you would get a knife in the situation. Now it's like, people, you can't do that anymore. People punk out and want to just obliterate you with a gun. So, let's have that conversation. I think I just feel like I felt kind of strongly about that when I read about that story out in Colorado Springs. I think there should have been some kind of reprimand for the boy being like, don't bring it like, come on, like, don't bring a toy gun in a virtual class or any classroom for that matter. So you can get like a school level reprimand. Does he need to be, have a record in the sheriff's office, the local sheriff's office? No, of course not. But I think that there is another conversation that's there. Just because there's white supremacy that we need to check doesn't mean that we don't set standards for our children. Doesn't mean that we don't make sure that we're encouraging our children to be better, regardless of the situation that they're in. And I know people are in some stressed out, really difficult circumstances. I grew up through some of those circumstances too, but there was just always, and a lot of households in my block, all the kids growing up in all kinds of really difficult circumstances. But there was there was just basic kind of standard things. And I think that's being missed in that conversation. Anyway, let me go to Rosalind out of Kensington, who's calling in for a reality check.
Yes,
Rosalind?
praise the Lord, Charles and Word family. I believe, because I come up a generation, that the head of the household is not running their house. This is why a lot of stuff is going on, and it's going to keep going on until they get their houses in order. As far as the gun is concerned, I came up with gang war. Even when they gang war, all this stuff wasn't going on. And cleanness is the next best thing that got this. And if we don't take care of our temple and our household, like the brother just got off and said, it's going to be more killing because of the system. We didn't design it. We don't need it. If you take back your homes and your community, rewrite arithmetic. Our ancestors didn't get a lot of education. I didn't get a lot of education, but my children and my great-grands, they are well educated. So this mess going on in the world is up to us to correct it within our household first. And I love y'all.
Right. No, thank you for that, Ms. Roslin. Appreciate you. Yeah, thank you for those. No, you're right. I mean, there is that level of it. And I mean, I know there's the politics of it, and there's also, that issue of the public policy and making sure that, we are eliminating as much of that school to prison pipeline as possible, right? We don't want that, but, we also want to make sure that we're equipping our children with the tools they need to navigate those kinds of spaces and those kinds of environments. And we understand that we have to work double time, to make sure that they're kind of watching those pitfalls. And I know it's difficult. I know it's extremely hard. And I know these things shouldn't be happening to us. It shouldn't be, like where there's the double standard is there. But, once again, that doesn't negate the standard. Let me go to Tyrone out of North Philly, who's calling in for a reality check. Tyrone?
Yes, peace and blessings, good brother.
Peace.
I trust your weekend went well, and my God, we're still caught up in our epidemic of violence and killing in our community. I live in Southwest, even though I work in North Philly. That's why I use North Philly, because that's where I'm spending all my time and putting my energy. But it looked like I'm going to have to come on the west side, man, because this shooting. And as you see, let me just get to my point. I'm sorry, my brother.
That's okay.
Yeah, there's 3 points I wanted to make very quickly. One, in terms of the president, calling them the dumbest, the stupidest. And, I don't understand what's going on with the Senate and what's going on with the House, that they can have the highest office in this country to say the things that man say, and you hear nothing. Nobody say anything about the ignorance, the arrogance, and the stupidity that comes from that. He's calling our sister and his challenges the stupidest, and nobody saying nothing. These are your Senate colleagues, and you let this man just say the things that he say. That's an issue. Secondly, I know Brother George and all the folks that feel that my sister, Commissioner Outlaw, is not fit for the job. I can't see how anybody can say who's fit for anything in these days and times, because, again, these things are happening in our community. These are our children, and it's been going on even before she got here. But I'm saying right now, it's the time for all of us to be on board, because it is an epidemic. It has been an epidemic, and it has been a cancer in our community, this violence and this killing. And we all need to be on board. So if you feel that she's not doing something, instead of saying she's not doing it, say what she needs to do so we can help her do what she needs to do to help us get control back of our communities. This is not a time for us to be tearing one another apart, man. This stuff is critical. You know, I'm right around the corner. 7 people, 8 people, you know, was shot. And the week before that, there was 10 right around the corner. So come on, man. Let's not keep saying this is, you know, somebody is responsible other than those who are doing the shooting and the killing. And last but not least, brother, I'm so glad you spoke about the casino, because what those most folks are doing, everybody is still living their life. Everybody is still trying to do what they need to do to be who they are and what they are. And we are still fighting, trying to get some equity in our community, trying to get some justice in our community, and trying to get our children to stop killing one another. So on one end, folks are building. On the other end, we are tearing apart. So let's get together, you know. Let's stop this, you know, name calling and saying who's doing what, and say what they need to do. Let's help them. Thank you, my brother, for allowing me to share.
No, you're welcome. I appreciate that, Tyrone. You said something too that I'll talk about it. Let me take a break first. James out of South, Jacob out of Olney, stand by. We're going to get right to you. Let's take a break here on Reality Check. We'll be right back.
Family Therapy Vignette Moments with Dr. Lucille Ijoy.
Come on out and become a Word Radio member one by one. Renew your membership or get a new one. Get serious information and have some fun. Call 215-425-7875. That's 215-425-7875. Come on out and become a Word Radio member one by one. Renew your membership or get a new one. Get serious information and have some fun.
Want another way to join the conversation? Follow us on social media using the hashtag onWURD. Be heard. Stay connected to Word Radio. Independent Black Media.
We will never know how many of our friends and family members didn't get COVID-19 because we followed safeguards. We'll never know that number. This is Dan Hilferty, CEO of Independence Blue Cross, with a simple reminder of how much good we do for others when we protect ourselves. We'll never know how many lives we save because we wear masks, wash our hands frequently, and keep social distance. We'll never know exactly who we help, who we save when we take protective steps each day. We'll only know one thing for certain, that we did all we could to save people from the effects of a pandemic with the potential to overwhelm the region. And that's a nice thing for us to live with. Thank you all. For more on what you can do, visit IBX.com. Together, we are beating COVID-19.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Let's go to the phone lines. Go back to the phone lines. Thanks for everyone's patience. We had James out of South Philly calling in for a reality check. James?
Yes, good morning. Thanks for the call. My issue is with all this violence in the city, it could come to a curve, and, you know, it doesn't take the police commissioner. It's people on the ground that the city council people is just not dealing with, such in South Philly. You know, we basically, a lot of these killings are wars. They're not just random. And to slow down to stop the wars. And the cops are warned, but you need the ground people to do it. And without, well, put it this way. The ground people can do it, but everything has to go through the city council person. And if the city council, if you're not a part of the city council crew, then they're not dealing with you. So it's subject to continue to go on. And we had a meeting with the mayor last year down here in South Philly. And, you know, he's saying what he's going to do. We told him what we needed to do. He said, all right, we'll do it. We never heard nothing back, I guess, because everything had to go through the city council.
Right.
Later that year, we got a phone call from, at the time, he was Inspector Dale. And we had a private meeting with him, Carol Schuler and them, and we told them what we could do. And they knew what we could do because they called us. And they said, well, we can make it happen, but we got to approve by the city council members. And again, you know, Kenyatta Johnson, they called, and the propaganda went out, and we never heard nothing back. The bottom line is a lot of this violence in the city can be curbed if you got the right ground people, and they are the right ground people around the city. But being though we're not a part of the city hall clique, we don't get access to do what we need to do. We're not.
I believe that. I believe because Philly is a very cliquish city.
Boots on the ground.
Always has been. I agree. I could believe that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I said we're not a part of all these organizations you constantly see. They promote, you know, when they're doing these TV interviews. But at the same time, we don't see them in our community. Like in South Philly, we have none of them that's down here. They can say they come through or whatever. I'm on the ground, and we out here, none of us know none of them. Who they interact with down here. You see, they have news cameras about the kids that just died. Only people was out there was the news people and the city council. You ain't even got the community. They lost faith in it. They lost faith.
Yeah.
They're not getting what the people need, and the people need is the real ground people, the people that's not on TV.
Right.
People that's not in these everyday clique organizations.
Right.
You know? And it's beyond the top. You know? You can't talk to the top, though. It ain't. It's beyond the top. You need the people in the community help. The people that's on the ground.
You do. You do. Hey, John, I'm gonna let James. Excuse me, James. I'm gonna let you go so I can just take on this other caller. And I think you just a few seconds ago kind of went in and out there, but I appreciate that. I exactly hear where you're coming from on that. I got a thought on that. Let me go to Jacob out of Olney, who's calling in for a reality check. Jacob.
Hey, peace be unto you, brother Ellison. How you doing today?
Peace. What's happening? How are you doing, sir?
Man, look at. For one, man, I got one thing I wanted to comment on a phone call I heard earlier today. But, you know, I think it's a little unfair to blame Commissioner Savage for what we see happening. She ain't even been here that long. She's just getting the feel of the thing. It was
talking about Outlaw, Commissioner Outlaw?
Yeah, Outlaw. What'd I say? Oh, my bad. Outlaw, yes. It would be like...
Let me ask you this, though, Jacob, because I partly agree with you in the sense that I want to throw this question at you and a lot of other people out there, because I've said this before. I know she hasn't been here a full year yet, and I know that it's a lot she's dealing with trying to run an organization as large as Philadelphia Police Department, and there's a lot of challenges with that, particularly being an outsider. But don't you feel she could do a little bit better? Because, I mean, in any job like this, especially a major public high-profile job, she could do better with the communication. I'm still not feeling it. I gave her some tips on that in a Philadelphia Citizen article some time ago. She's got to do better with the communication, with just make kind of through the various tools. And I don't know if this is her or if it's City Hall, the mayor's office. She's got to open up. I'm just not feeling like folks are getting that kind of communications or spiritual connection they need with it. Anyway, go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, I feel what you're saying. Hindsight is 20/20. Every night when I lay on my pillow, I know that there's some things that I could have did better, right? So if the Creator give me the next day, I try to work on that. But the mayor been here before she was. But on this violence, right? I heard a brother mention Jeremiah Shabazz, right? I used to guard Jeremiah Shabazz like the Secret Service cover Donald Trump or a president, right? I would be with him all day. And yes, I was a member of the Nation of Islam, and we did help along with other organizations, like one run by Benny Swine, right, that worked on the violence. But the brother just said, this is about drug wars. And the truth be told, brother, let me say this here. There were people who were saying Assalamu alaikum that was killing one another in front of the temple, okay?
Yeah.
That's the truth. So it was about this these drug wars that was going down at that time, the truth be told. But that's neither here nor there. I wouldn't even try to blame the parents for some of these children, because you have a lot of parents that raised them in the way that they should go. But they got out here and start wilding out. We was talking about guns. Look, you mean to tell me you had money to buy guns? We were so poor, we had to make guns out of wood, right?
Yeah.
We couldn't
I remember those.
And I didn't turn out to be no killer, but we had fun playing cowboys and Indians. So, but the call this morning, there was a sister that called, and I respect her and her right. She said she ain't going to vote for none of the people that's running. She said she's going to write somebody in, right? This is exactly what Trump, if by this time, and I mean, she has a right to do that. But if you have not done the work to see the difference in a Donald Trump and a Joe Biden, man, you need to do some study. I'm just saying. Because if you don't know the difference, one is a white supremacist, the head of one of the greatest white supremacist leaders I've seen in my lifetime, and I'm a senior. And Joe Biden, I can't say nothing to you, but you need to really rethink that and stop wasting your vote. You're going to write somebody in, like Kanye West or something. I mean,
you might as well. Yeah, put the hood on at that point. Yeah, just put the hood on, or just fill out your application, send it in to the Grand Wizards of whatever clan chapter. No, seriously, that's my attitude on that. People want to keep playing around and messing around, and think that this doesn't do us all harm. That kind of mindset and that kind of activity. I mean, fine, and that's your prerogative, but like black card, as they call it, is that what it is? The black card is automatically revoked. You might as well sign up with the Klan and the Proud Boys and all of them. Sorry, I got to let you go, Jacob. Let me go to Pat out of West Philly calling in for a reality check. Pat?
Good morning, Charles. How are you? Nice to hear you.
Good morning.
I have a couple things. One is that I want to push the census. I'm a census taker, so I want to push that because the end of the month is it. So if you haven't done your census, please do. I also wanted to have your feedback on, there was a photo op with the commissioner and a young girl and her grandfather, I believe, and she was a victim of violence, and she got some presents. And I don't know if I told you, but I give away free books to children. So this weekend, I'm reading to a child on a step, and a woman comes by with a little boy, and I live down the street from a police station. So he points to the police station, and he says to the person that's with him, he wants to go there to get a present. So the woman says, what are you talking about? And he says, Pop said the little girl that got shot got presents. So he wanted to go to the police station to get presents. This is the kind of stuff that, I don't know how you feel about it. I'm interested to hear your feedback on the fact that she took a photo op of this little girl who got shot and got presents. Other kids see this, and it's like, to me, it's like glorifying it, in my opinion. I just wanted to hear your feedback, and I'm going to hang up and listen.
Yeah, we have to be wary of that. I mean, anybody Okay, first of all, I think it's, yeah, we want to, if we're doing these types of situations or photo ops where the whole purpose of it is, like, for example, if it's a public official, which public officials in the city, from the mayor to the city council, on, like, when, just like when they're visiting police officers when they get shot, I mean, they need to be doing that for normal average residents of Philly who were innocent bystanders or innocent people getting shot, and because they do the same thing. I mean, but there's a certain, but you don't want to be glorifying the violence. We don't want there to be situations here, issues where I agree with you. Where you're having people having their injuries, or having, like, their whatever, how they've been victimized, being used for public purposes, or for people to give other people out there any ideas. And we just have to set a standard in terms of the type of tone and the type of mindset. So I mean, I basically kind of agree with you on that. So I have to take a break, actually, because I'm looking at the clock here and I'm realizing that I'm going a little bit over time. Let's take a quick, thanks Ms. Pat for calling in with that, though. Let me take a break, and when we come back on the other side, I think we're supposed to be talking with James Lamond from the Center for American Progress. Got going to a cap corner. Let's take a break, and we'll bring James Lamond on next here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WordRadio.com. Word TV, Word app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Weather and traffic to keep you informed for your drive home in the happy hour with Sincerely Sarita. Monday through Thursday, 4 till 7 p.m. Right here on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
How do we make sense of our nation's history with race, privilege, and inequality? On Thursday, September 24th at 6 p.m., join Pulitzer Prize-winning author and Harvard University historian Annette Gordon-Reed as she discusses the challenges of wrestling with America's complicated past. This free virtual event is part of the Museum of the American Revolution's Carl M. Buchholz lecture series. Tickets are free, but registration is required at amrevmuseum.org or by calling 215-253-6731.
Pico has many ways to help you lower your energy usage and save money at home. Here's one. If your heating and cooling system is more than 20 years old, it may be time for your contractor to replace it with a high-efficiency Energy Star certified model. You'll get a rebate from Pico and save on your monthly electric bill. You'll find a list of new heating and cooling system rebates at pico.com/rebates. Or you can call 1-888-5-PICO-SAVE for all the details. Plus, find instant discounts on smart thermostats and more at pico.com/marketplace. There's free shipping on orders over $49.
Home of the Happy Hour. The Happy Hour with Sincerely Sarita. This is Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Streaming live at wordradio.com and on the Word Radio app. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM. Also, wordradio.com, listening beyond Philly and Delaware Valley. Obviously, you can listen within at FM AM, but you can also listen beyond at wordradio.com, and also Word TV, Word app as well for the regular live stream. And many of you do. I see people at facebook.com/4word and youtube.com/onWURD. Appreciate some of those comments that we're seeing there right now. James Lamond is a fellow on the Center for American Progress's National Security and International Policy team. He's also co-author of a report that just came out about protecting U.S. elections from foreign interference, lessons from 2016. Go to americanprogress.org to read that report, to kind of get a sense of what's happening with the elections coming up and the level of foreign interference, foreign manipulation that we're seeing. James Lamond joins us now here on Reality Check. James, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me back. It's always great to be here.
Okay, great. It's good to have you back, too. Yeah, no, it's been a minute since we last talked to you. So talk about this report. What are the lessons that we learned from 2016? Are we really feeling as if, or do you feel, James, that we're actually acting on those lessons in any way? I just feel like there's a lot of shades of 2016 in the 2020 election.
So I think there's a positive message and a negative message coming out of this, right? So so the positive first, which is I think, people are aware. This was something we were caught off guard in 2016, right? And most voters didn't have in their mind that, a Russian internet troll farm was trying to manipulate them and sow chaos and persuade their vote. That was not something that anybody really had in their mind as they're walking the vote booth or were reading posts online. And so the situational awareness exists now in a way that it didn't before. But that said, while people are more aware, there's more kind of vigilance about it. It is also our policymakers have not really kind of stepped up in the way that we need a government to do. So voters can only do so much, especially without kind of recognition and encouragement and tools that are available at the federal level. And frankly, the Congress has tried. And House of Representatives has put forward a slew of proposals and legislation to help kind of stem the impact that these could have and and clamp down. But frankly, the administration has done nothing to protect them. Frankly, it's only encouraged foreign interference. So I'm afraid it's looking a little frightening right now.
Yeah, yeah. James, what do you say to folks who sometimes argue that, well, this is something that the U.S. government has been doing for quite a long time now? Particularly, it was at its height throughout the Cold War, still do it to a degree, where they use their intelligence services, they use their, military intelligence industrial complex to interfere in other people's elections, other countries' elections. And now we're bothered about other foreign powers interfering in our elections. Some people may say, well, that's just karma.
Yeah, so no, I think that's a really important question. And I think, you look back at what the United States did in terms of political interference in, especially in the Cold War, it went poorly. It was not good for America. It backfired on us. I mean, you think about, our policy towards Iran in the 1950s, and it backfired and has been defining a lot of our entire strategy towards the Middle East since, for the past 50, 60 years. And so I think the lessons we learned from that is that's not good to do. And it's not to our advantage. And I think that, what we see now, what the U.S. does and this sort of election interference kind of work is very, very different. Right? So, so there's the kind of overt sort of interference or influence operations campaigns, right? So, for example, Barack Obama wrote a op-ed in the British newspaper arguing against Brexit, and that was kind of criticized at the time for kind of going against diplomatic protocols. That you don't actually interfere with an allies or any country's election operations. I think that, but the difference is that a lot of what the U.S. will do, whether it be sort of those sort of big public pronouncements from political leaders or, supporting democracy movements, right? This is something that Vladimir Putin will actually point to. And he says that he has support for, IRI, the International Republican Institute, and NDI, the National Democratic Institute, is equivalent to election interference. And in some ways, to him, from his lens, that probably is true because it is counter to him because he is not a Democrat or small d Democrat or small r Republican. But I think that the key distinction is that these are public efforts. These are it's very clear where we stand and what we're doing, and so you have all the information available. What Russia is doing and what other countries are doing is pretending to be Americans and interfering, and frankly illegally in many cases, in our elections.
So what are you in this report? You guys are kind of outlining some recommendations and also like the need for investment. You were talking about how the policymakers are falling short on like catching up to the realization, the lessons that were learned from 2016. How much money would it take? Because I know that's been there's like, for example, I think the what was it, the House recommended or was passing a package that was in like the $3 to $4 billion range, and then the Senate came back with something in the ballpark of like what, 300 million. What would it take? What's that investment to make these elections fully secure? I don't know if this is something you've looked at or even calculated, James. What would be that figure, that needed amount of resources and money to make these elections secure from this level of interference?
So I guess I would take a step back in some ways, right? So there's immediate actions needed to take, right? And I think that the House package kind of addresses the immediate actions that need to be taken to help secure between now and and the November 3rd election. But I also think it's important to think about the broader trends that are happening. So it is, one of the goals of this report was to really paint a broader picture than is commonly understood. So I think there's, typically when people are talking about election interference, they're talking about really in the 2016 election, they're talking about two things, right? They're talking about disinformation campaigns on social media platforms and the hack and release that, the Podesta and DNC emails that were released in a way that to benefit Trump. And so I think, those are the two kind of threats that the Mueller report examined too. So it's really everybody. But when you take a broader step back, you see that, there are a lot of things that we've discovered, including, support for neo-Nazi organizations and far-right groups that are here to destabilize and impact the election. We see, their support for even kind of these kind of fringe movements like California secessionists and Texas secessionists that are meant to kind of, sow chaos and disrupt the unity of the country. There are things that have not gone answered, right? So the financials, to me, is the single most apparent omission from the Mueller report. They were not examined, and there are reports that they were waived off, that Rosenstein had waived off Robert Mueller from examining Trump's financials. And to me, I don't understand how you can do a counterintelligence investigation without looking at the money. This is simple kind of, investigations 101. And that, to me, is really where you see how these sort of political movements can develop. I mean, there's a recent discovery that this far-right, borderline neo-Nazi party in the Netherlands was started by Russian money that was planted there. They started in 2014. Basically, they run on a very pro-Russia, anti-EU message, and they are now a political party where they have seats and are a force in Dutch politics. And so those, when you look at those sort of trends around the world, you think about what is happening here, and we have not actually examined the finances in a way that is determinative.
The other, what about the social media companies? I was reading recently, James, how there's so much about, like, especially a platform like Facebook, which doesn't seem to doesn't have a desire to regulate this kind of activity, because a lot of these militia groups, these extremist groups, these white nationalist groups, white supremacist groups, they're being allowed to fester and amplify in a way that is, on some levels, you can argue is unprecedented, that they weren't allowed, well, I mean, in ways they were allowed to do that in really deadly ways during Jim Crow and segregation. But it just seems like, what kind of pressure or more pressure do we need, or policymakers need to put on these social media companies, particularly Facebook? I mean, Facebook, from the 2016 election to even the genocide that took place in Myanmar, and just not being held accountable. So, I mean, one, what do the policymakers need to do in that respect? And then two, I was reading something where they were saying that maybe we ought to look into product liability or product liability law, or looking for damages. Citizens need to look at damages against social media companies like Facebook for encouraging this kind of violence and this kind of, this kind of infiltration into democratic process.
Yeah, so I think that's spot on, and specifically, on kind of violent white nationalists and kind of neo-Nazi organizations you're referring to, a lot of them are actually structured in a way that is very local. Like, these are local groups. These are, they're kind of, a lot of them are just like pals from high school who, then get radicalized. But what's really dangerous is that they are now able to connect, and they are able to connect to these platforms, and that is where you're seeing this kind of local issues and local kind of problems then crossing state and even international borders, and that is really concerning in terms of how we actually are able to kind of approach this from a law enforcement issue. Besides that, though, I think on the social media question, social media regulation question, I think this is kind of a big moment for them, right? they were unaware in 2016 about what was happening, and I mean, they were caught off guard like the rest of us, and they've had 4 years now to really kind of step up. And you've seen some measures come out recently. I think are a step in the right direction, though still likely insufficient. But I think what they need to do is simple, right? We should increase transparency and exposure by the social media companies. So thinking about the full archive of material that foreign interference that has been placed on the platforms by state actors. I mean, they are able to determine that, and we should require them to release that publicly so we understand what the messages that are driving this are. We should also think about greater cooperation between the social media companies so that they are able to communicate and help kind of identify trends, help develop common regulations. And then we also need, increasing coordination with NGOs. So thinking through, a lot of NGOs are monitoring this space in ways that the social media companies aren't. And they are often, because they're many times the target of disinformation campaigns, they are the first to identify them. And so how do we actually develop those lines of communication and develop those pathways to help identify? And essentially just taking a much, much more proactive approach.
We're talking with James Lamond. James Lamond here joining us with the Center for American Progress. He is a senior fellow on the National Security and International Policy team there, co-author of the report Protecting U.S. Elections from Foreign Interference Lessons from 2016. Go to AmericanProgress.org for more information and to check out that brief and check out that report that James put together. Or blunting, which report is it? Blunting foreign interference efforts by learning the lessons of the past. Is that the complete title of the report, James?
Yeah, it's very quippy, right?
yeah. There you go. Okay, I just want to make sure I had the right. So when people go to AmericanProgress.org, they're looking for the right thing. Blunting foreign interference efforts by learning the lessons of the past. You had mentioned something here about the need for more information sharing among multiple government agencies. Who are those key multiple or those key government agencies that are involved in this effort to discourage foreign interference or to figure out aggressive and creative ways to diminish it, to limit or eliminate it? Who are those agencies? Military intelligence, maybe non-military, non-intelligence, and what should they be sharing? How should they be sharing? Because I think there's a lack of that too. There's definitely misalignment and people not being on the same page between the Congress and the executive branch, between the legislative and executive branch. One, do we see that same kind of tension within multiple agencies over exactly the extent of foreign interference, or is everyone on the same page? And two, how do they need to be collaborating?
So this is one of the really kind of interesting and kind of tricky issues about foreign interference, is that it cuts across so many of the traditional kind of issue silos in the way DC and government is structured, right? So it's a law enforcement issue, it's an intelligence issue, it's an elections administration issue. And so, for example, so the CIA will be very good at monitoring for what they, for threats from international actors, like especially, Russia in this case. So they will be monitoring and have the kind of understanding of the geopolitics of it, have an understanding of the motivation and kind of, and much of the information that may be kind of that they're intercepting. At the same time, they don't know how elections work, but the SEC really understands elections and how to, even in its non-functioning form, still the staff there understand how elections work and are able to really kind of apply a degree of expertise that is not available at the CIA or at the Department of Defense or at the State Department, right? And so this kind of combination of domestic and international national security, I think, is critical, right? And in some ways, you see this divide on display when looking at the two kind of recent reports that have come out. I mean, the Mueller report from last year and then the Senate Intelligence Committee report. And the Mueller report basically takes a very dry legal viewpoint, but it doesn't, while reading it, you can tell that there's a bunch of, written by lawyers who don't really understand how elections work. They've never really run a campaign. But then you read the Senate Intelligence Committee report, which is, written by staff and has political leadership, i.e. senators who have run in elections. and they just understand how elections work a little bit better. And so there are things like when you're sharing polling data, what does that actually mean? How big a deal is that actually? When you're kind of like, those sort of understandings are critical in thinking through this kind of cross-functional, kind of cross-issue silo type of thing. And so so I think that the agencies that need to be involved are the CIA, State Department, Defense Department, as well as the Department of Justice and FEC. But ultimately, I think this needs to coordinate because this is cutting across so many different kind of agencies and departments. There needs to be leadership at the top, and there should be a White House person designated for this, whether that's a National Security Council senior director or somebody on the domestic side. I think somebody needs to be kind of running point on this, on what would be an interagency task force.
Yeah, that's going to be real key here. Just ensuring that the agencies are working together and making sure that the tensions and the toxicity that we're seeing on Capitol Hill and up and down Pennsylvania Independence Avenue is not affecting these agencies. And as far as the political candidates too, let's talk a little bit about that, James, while we got you on for just another couple minutes. What should candidates be doing? How should now? I mean, it's kind of like how the big banks, after Wall Street reform, you have the big banks, the financial sector, even though they're not really doing it the way they should be doing it, but they have to take stress tests. They also have to engage in risk mitigation and compliance with new regulations. Is this something that all political campaigns should be? I mean, are they doing this, James? Whether they're Democrat or Republican, are they baking in foreign interference risk mitigation into their campaigns, into the way they carry out their social media campaigns, their digital strategy, the way they keep their websites secure, emails secure? Are they doing more of this in 2020 than they did in 2016? I mean, there was already a high level of cybersecurity. That kind of goes without saying. That was part of the standard package. But what's different that campaigns are doing now in 2020, or that they should be doing differently from 2016?
So, first of all, I'd say campaigns, generally speaking, have, and the campaign committees of the entire, party apparatuses have really stepped up and increased, thinking about it in terms of cybersecurity as one of the big issues, right? So they've really done a lot to secure networks and taking, cybersecurity hygiene very, very seriously. And that's reassuring. But at the same time, there's always going to be vulnerabilities, and there's always a potential for human error, and that's that's why you see tech companies getting hacked, right? Because Twitter was and other kind of really advanced technological companies have been hacked and had data breaches. So ultimately, there's no such thing as a completely secure network. So yeah. So there's also a need for thinking through the kind of political ramifications about this from a policy way. And so I think Joe Biden had put out a statement about a month or two ago, and I thought it was really a strong statement. Essentially, he lays out what he would do as president if there is a foreign interference attack. And essentially, it's a warning to Russia, right? And unfortunately, what I'd like to see really is essentially a parallel statement from all the candidates, right? So basically, the message being to Russia, no matter who wins, if you mess with our elections, you will face consequences. Unfortunately, the Trump campaign has not done that, and I don't anticipate it happening anytime soon. In fact, it's done most the opposite, which has been kind of encouraging Russian-aligned activities both here and abroad, and really refusing to call them out on everything from the Afghanistan bounties story to the poisoning of Alexei Navalny, and it's been a real disappointment, because I think ultimately, we are a free society. So you can't, if people want to access Russian propaganda, Americans, they should feel free to do that. We can't shut down our internet. We can't shut down our society and our freedoms. And similarly, we can't ever have 100% secure cyber networks. But what we can have is a situation where state actors feel that they cannot do this activity because there will be serious price to pay. There will be real cost for them to do so. And so until that happens, we can't really, until we create that deterrence effect, then we won't be able to really prevent this from happening.
We've been talking with James.
That's something only the president can do.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. James Lamond is a senior fellow in the Center for American Progress's National Security and International Policy team. He's also co-author of a new report, Blunting Foreign Interference Efforts by Learning the Lessons of the Past. He does that in conjunction with his colleague, Jeremy Vanook, and he's been joining us here for Cap Corner on Reality Check. James, good to talk with you, man. Really appreciate this work, too. So we'll be talking to you, I'm sure, before Election Day.
Excellent. Looking forward to it.
All right. Take care. Okay, let's take a break, and when we come back on the other side, Mustafa Rashid for a strategist segment. Just trying to get a preview of what might happen in City Council later on this week, what City Council needs to focus on, what it will choose to focus on in City Hall. But anyway, Mustafa Rashid, local strategist, joining us for a strategist segment here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, Word TV, Word app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Get your money straight. Get my money right. It's Solomon Jones and Akbar Hassan. Fridays on Wake Up with Word. 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. Hosted by Solomon Jones. Exclusively on Word Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on wordradio.com and on the Word Radio app.
Just one more step. You got it.
You're doing great. This is the sound of a nationally ranked top rehabilitation hospital, home to the largest collection of robotics in the United States, where we continually exceed patient expectations, because no injury is too severe or too minor for our care.
There you go.
This is the sound of success. Moss Rehab. Challenge accepted.
WordRadio.com. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WordRadio.com, Word TV, Word app. Just waiting on Mustafa Rashid. He should be here short. Oh, here he is. Mustafa Rashid, founder, president, CEO of Bellevue Strategies, Philly-based, BellevueStrategies.com for more information at Mustafa Rashid, 1E, on Twitter, on social media. He joins us now here on Reality Check. Mustafa, what's going on? How are you doing, sir?
Great, Charles. How are you? Thanks for having me.
All right. Good to have you. Thanks for coming on. Always appreciate it. So let's start locally. Typically you and I will chew the fat on national politics, but want to get your sense of what the what the trends look like in terms of local politics, what the trends, what issues will be focused on or need to be focused on by City Council as it gets back into gear this Thursday as a whole. What are the issues you think are going to stand out? I know violence obviously is going to be one of them, but what's your take on what they're going to focus on or what they need to focus on as they get back into session?
Yeah, Charles, I think that first and foremost, the violence, in particular the gun violence that's been happening all of this year and seemed to accelerate over the summer. I saw a quote, and I apologize if I misquote the council person, but the general sentiment was that there felt like there needed to be even more urgency about addressing it as a public health crisis. And sort of the same way as we get an update every day on the COVID-19 numbers, and have that completely reported and surrounded, should we not get the same information on shootings and gun violence so that the data is there, it's shared with everyone, and it gets the same attention, and that we sort of just don't have a weekend where 20 or 30 people are shot and a half dozen people are killed, and we say a prayer and maybe we cry and we move on until the next weekend, but that is something that we constantly focus on every single day, that every life is valued, every life in the city that's taken away matters, and that we need to put more resources towards it and pay more attention to it.
Yeah, but do we feel like City Council, City Hall is really urgent enough on this, Mustafa? I mean, I get that question all the time. And so people think it's unfair for me to, some people out there, not all, but some people think it's unfair for me to like kind of give maybe certain policymakers, certain folks at City Hall a hard time, you know, because everyone said, well, they're doing the work. But yeah, okay, they're meeting, they're having hearings. I mean, but are they like, I mean, are policymakers, are folks like in the City Council really setting the kind of red alert, urgent tone that has to be set to really make a breakthrough on this situation?
I think you raised a good point on the tone. I think the work is there, and you know, without folks being able to meet in person right now, which is still something folks are working towards. I think you're right. I think that based on what we see every day, and that the city is facing a record number of murders, there's no tone that can be loud enough or alarming enough or urgent enough right now. No tone is sufficient enough until this stops. And I think everyone would agree with that. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, do we really feel like? I feel like, but how do we know? We haven't explored a new tone. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Okay. Let me give you an example here, because I mean, you're a messaging optic guru, right? And that's why we bring you on, because you know this. Like, you know this space. You're a master in this space. For example, the way the mayor, the city council president, other city council folks, when a cop goes down, gets shot, everyone's at the hospital.
Yeah,
everyone's at the hospital, immediately at the hospital, and that's fine. You know, these are public servants. You know, they're in these stressed environments, and it's very dangerous, and they'll get shot in the line of duty, and that's what a public elected official is supposed to do. Do the same thing for people, for like average Philly residents who are getting shot. I honestly feel, dramatic things like that, it would send a message. Just something like that. It would send a message like, hey, you know what? We're all in this together, and this is unacceptable. And, every time this happens, we're going to go. I mean, okay, fine. You're not going to get but 3-4 hours of sleep a night if you keep doing that. But you know what? You signed up for that. I didn't ask you to run for office. Neither did Mustafa Rashid.
Yeah.
Or the people that you said you wanted to run to serve the public good. So it's like, okay, well, you're going to have to keep your butt up at night and go to these hospitals, visit these families, and yes, and make a public spectacle out of that. I see, that to me is that's the kinds of tone we have not explored in Philadelphia, I think.
Yeah, I hear you. And I just, as you said it, I thought of it and like what that would look like. And part of me thought, hey, you know what, if that encourages more people, if that captures the attention of people in the community, and then that captures their attention and their desire to overcome their fears and help with the process. And then I stopped because I thought, one of the reasons why the spike in violence is right now is because people are afraid to that trust between the police and community members doesn't exist the way that it should to help with some of these problems. And so I thought, yeah, that's great. And then I got stuck on how far that could actually go. But I hear what you're saying, and I don't think that anything would be wrong with pushing that sort of sense of urgency to a very real problem.
Yeah. How do we feel, Mustafa, as far as the so on this violence issue, but I want to get on to a couple of other issues too that are obviously boiling points, including like evictions, pandemic, state of the city's economy. But this violence issue, I know it's front and center for a lot of folks. Do we feel like there's unity around the issue? Because I noticed like there was one person who called in earlier before we had this segment who was saying that, City Hall is not talking to enough people on the ground. They're just talking to people who are in certain political networks. And I am, the more I'm having these conversations, whether here on this radio station or talking to people directly or doing like town halls about violence in Philadelphia, that's a common theme, is this like lack of unity, this lack of awareness of what each part or group or organization with, the lack of awareness between like what the leg and the arm is doing. It seems like a very kind of discombobulated state of things as far as response to. I think in that lack of unity is also, unfortunately and inadvertently, that's feeding into the violence.
Yeah, it seems to be what you said is maybe one part of the system, the body, as it were, doesn't get real-time information to the other. I think that happens, and that can happen in any bureaucracy. I think that's not a bug. That's a feature of a bureaucracy, right?
Right. Yeah, it is.
That's just what you get, and maybe create some inefficiencies when you're trying to do real-time mediation intervention to keep the violence down. You could be chasing after something long after it's gone. I think that can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. We're talking with Mustafa Rashid, founder, president, CEO of Bellevue Strategies. Go to BellevueStrategies.com for more information. At Mustafa Rashid on Twitter, on social media, where he's highly engaged there. He joins us occasionally here for our strategist segment. It's always good to have him on our strategist segment here on Reality Check WURD. Those other issues we've been also kind of thinking about with respect to Philly's still in the middle of a pandemic like everyone else. The city finances are taking like a really heavy hit. And there's worry about like the homelessness or housing insecurity situation in Philly getting worse. How's council going about that?
Yeah, one of the things that concerns me, and I think it concerns everyone, because a society, a city that has an increased homeless population, makes it has the opportunity to make it inherently less safe, and that becomes a problem for us all. As the moratoriums on evictions end and start to come back online, Charles, I don't think we've seen the worst of it yet. I think there's a wave of it that's coming that has the potential to disrupt whole families, to make education even more challenging than it already is for families across Philadelphia. One of the things that I was having a conversation with a colleague about this yesterday, from a historical standpoint, or just from just an observation standpoint, what COVID has done is it has taken your city, your situation, and accelerated it into the direction that you were already headed. So if you were doing well before COVID, you're probably doing better now. I could talk to you about some of those reasons why they are. But no one stayed the same. And if you were not doing so well prior to COVID, if you were in insecure housing or food insecurity, or just living close to or near the poverty line, then it accelerated you further into that direction. So we're going to start to see a lot of that come out, and our city can't begin its recovery until we hit the bottom. And I'm just not sure we're there yet, Charles. And that, I find that very concerning. That I'm not sure if we're starting to point up until we hit the bottom.
Yeah. I mean, what could the city do in a situation like this to protect, with respect to evictions and renters in the city? This is like half the city's population.
Sure.
And a high number of them are dealing with housing insecurity, can't pay rent. I mean, the money's not there. I don't know. We had Councilmember Dim on last week, and she was saying some of the money's there. Like the state sitting on, the Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth is sitting on $1 billion. She's like, we're just asking for like 15 million of that to kind of help stave off immediate crisis. And the state, this is $1 billion in federal funding that they got from the first relief package. What's going on there? And I mean, I'm kind of like wondering what's going on with Philly's state delegation. Like, what are they doing? What is up with Philly state legislators? Like, y'all can't get $15 million out of the $1 billion that the state is sitting on to avoid the, are people going to Harrisburg and doing their job?
I know that they are. I see them when we're there. I would tell you that the money from the CARES funding has come with a lot of federal restrictions on how it can be used, and it has to be directly related to the pandemic. And where municipalities and states want to be used is to sort of backfill some of the money that they've had to use to either an emergency preparedness, for first responders, police and fire. But those rules haven't been adjusted yet. So you don't want to spend that money if you have to send it back, or if you're penalized for using it improperly. Every state and every town in America right now is waiting on the federal government, on Congress, who went on recess in September, the Senate in particular, to come back and pass legislation that will help clarify how those funds can be spent, and provide additional funding to states and municipalities, because right now they're in a holding pattern and not sure what they want to do with that, what they can legally do with that funding until it's clarified.
Jeez, that's an ugly.
It's gridlock, Charles. It's bad, and the Senate Majority Leader has said he doesn't want states using the money because they've been financially imprudent. But as I read yesterday, folks are in trouble. Like, if someone shows up at your hospital and has having a heart attack, you don't lecture them at that time. That's when you help them, and then you figure out a way to get them on their way. You don't lecture them at that time, and that's kind of what it feels like right now. Our states and municipalities being lectured on prior decisions, but not being helped right now with what they need.
Do you, speaking, you were talking about emergency responders, particularly during pandemic. I think a lot of the emergency management, we don't talk enough about the kind of the funding that goes into also a lot of civic unrest that we've been seeing, particularly over this summer. That's all converging all at once. That's putting an enormous strain. We've had these conversations here on Reality Check. That's putting enormous restraint on emergency management officials, et cetera. Let me ask you, do we feel like there will be quite a bit of time taken up in City Council this session with conversations about defunding the police, like we've seen in other local legislatures? Do you think that that's going to hit a fevered pitch this session?
I think it's a conversation worth having. And to be clear, I think what folks generally mean are providing the police with the training that's required for de-escalation and things like that, but maybe not asking the police to do as much as they have been, to be the mediators, to be mental health professionals, to be school supervisors, to do all the things that they may not be equipped to do, and to use that funding for people who are equipped to do it, to be mediators, to be folks that can do de-escalation. Like we call 911 now out of default for everything, and to be fair, it may not, in most cases, it's unfair to the police department to have to try to manage all of that without appropriate training.
Yeah, I think that would have been the better. I would have gone along more with. I still have problems with. I think it was a messaging mistake.
It wasn't.
Defund. Because you want to be able people to just be able, like you said, just be able to get the point and align with you. As like I would have gone for something like de-escalate or demilitarize. There's a bunch of people out there.
Let's demilitarize. Actually, I was just about to say, Charles, it was what I just described was too long for a tagline, but what you just described is perfect. It's like demilitarize the police. I don't think anyone has demilitarize that.
Right, but I'm gonna be real talk with Mustafa. I bet you that came up in some of those like planning rooms. Yeah, demilitarize, and people were like, I can't demilitarize what? Like people can't. I bet you there's people. I will put money on it. They couldn't pronounce it. There was going to be a bunch of folks out there can't pronounce. See, defund is just 2 syllables. Defund.
Defund.
And they thought, that's cute. You know what I mean? Like, don't go that route. No, I'm telling you, fam, that's not going to work.
Correct.
But demilitarize too many syllables.
It may be too much, but it lends itself to a visual. And you've seen the visuals of police showing up for some of the protests, and they look like they're in the military. Yeah, and I think that will provoke a response that's less than peaceful. And so again, you want to give the police officers the tools and the training that they need, and not ask them or any of us to do things that are outside of the scope, especially when people's lives are on the line.
Yeah. Yeah, you really do. I think, you definitely need to overhaul the police. I think there has to be a complete fundamental overhaul of police answer, and I've said this time and time again. It's like we're constantly, before people can even get into the need to overhaul policing, they got to explain what they meant by the main slogan, defund. Yeah. You shouldn't have to go through all that. Like, you should just be able to go straight to the point, or for people to get it enough where it's like, okay, well, we can start having a conversation. We're still, here we are months into this term, and that's why you can see it's still not catching the way it should be. I mean, it's catching in the public conversation, but has it really caught on yet with the policymakers who are going to have to make the decisions, going to have to work with the activists to make the decisions, the policy, to overhaul these police departments.
No,
and I'm not seeing that happening on a mass scale.
I'm not. I think it might be too nebulous, too loose a term, sort of like what workforce development is. Like it can mean anything you want it to mean, but not enough clarity on it to be focused enough to push towards one direction. And if anything, unfortunately, it's become sort of a battering ram from folks who are opposed to reform to make it seem like you don't want police at all, which is not the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Mustafa Rashid is founder, CEO, president of Bellevue Strategies. Go to BellevueStrategies.com. It's Philly based, Center City based, well, now virtual based, like everyone else these days. And he joins us here for our regular strategist segment here on Reality Check. He's a regular strategist contributor here on Reality Check on WURD. It's always a pleasure to have him at Mustafa Rashid on Twitter. We'll see you again, Mustafa. Thanks again for this.
Great, Charles. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care. Okay, let's take a break. Let's open the phone lines. 215-634-8065. Toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Want the latest in Word swag? Check out the shop tab on WordRadio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on WordRadio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk Media.
A job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. Under my plan, 50% of emergency small business relief would be reserved for the smallest businesses to recover from the economic mess we're in and to rebuild the economic future our country deserves. We can't just build back to what it was before. We have to build back better. If we truly want to reward the work in this country, we have to ease the financial burdens of care that families are carrying. To start, every 3- and 4-year-old child gets access to free high-quality preschool, and low- and middle-income families won't spend more than 7% of their income on child care for children under the age of 5, advancing racial equity across the American economy, building wealth for families of color, building a future worthy of their courage and their ambition. Just imagine if we could truly unleash their full potential. I'm confident we can do this. I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Support independent black media and join the Forward movement now at 215-425-7875 or visit wordradio.com. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let me see. They're having a great conversation on Twitter. I'm kind of multitasking here. My friend Rashawn Biddle, he's come on here maybe once or twice before Dropout Nation. I got to bring him on the program because he and I are having a massive disagreement here on Twitter about this issue with this 12-year-old boy in Colorado Springs who was suspended, also got a record with the county sheriff's office for having a gun, having a toy gun in a virtual classroom. You know, school was taking place. He had a toy gun with him, and they called the school called the sheriff's office. The sheriff showed up at his door. So so he's disagreeing with me. He's feeling like, well, you know, yeah, that was, he's saying or making it seem like I don't understand the school to prison pipeline, or that I'm saying that the boy should have got suspended. I from the top, I'm like, yeah, it was excessive. I said, yeah, it was very excessive. She didn't have to go that route, but set standards. Like, we know that, like, we know that white supremacy exists. We know the racism is there, right? We know it's there. It permeates like every particle of American air. Like, we know we live in racist spaces. I get that. I know that. I'm saying that as a black father of 3 black children, 3 wonderful black children, right? Who's had to help them navigate. That's what I was just saying. Like, you know, like, why would you set your kid up? I'm just giving y'all some tips here. Like, don't put your kid in a situation like having them, if you a mom or a dad, like, yo, son, you know, you in class, like, you're not playing a video game right now. You're not playing Nerf gun. Like, give me that gun and put that away. Like, you in class. Like, why would you do that? And you in Colorado. You in Columbine country. Why you going, like, that's just common sense. It's like it got nothing to do with white supremacy. Or, I mean, in the sense it has something to do with white supremacy and living in the kind of country or the kind of society we live in, and just giving them common sense tips not to get set up. Like, you're going to get set up. As black kids, particularly in public school settings, you are a magnet for the setup. So why do you put your kids in a situation to get set up? That's all I'm saying. Like, you letting your kid do whatever the hell they want, especially in these virtual classrooms. I know it's a lot of that going on. Like, they're looking for us to, or looking for our kids to drop the ball on something, and because the setup is ongoing. It's unfair. Yes, it's unfair. It's heinous. It's horrific. It's a pain in the butt. Like, I get it, and there's a double standard is there. It's unjust. It's in many respects illegal. I get it, but you know what? It's there. And sometimes the best way to counter it is just to know how to navigate in that space and to have like a standard set for you, for yourself, for your household, for your kids, certain like standards to make sure they're not like falling into the trap. And that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. It's not negating the racism or the white supremacy. This is not respectability politics. And I hate that term. Like, when people say that, I so despise that term. It's like, you would tell your kid just to go ahead and I'm asking them that question, and he still ain't answered that question yet. I'm like, so you would tell your kid, it's okay, go ahead, honey, or go ahead, boy. You want to just do whatever you want, have at it. Like, go ahead and bring up one of those big rifle Nerf guns, or better yet, go ahead and bring a pellet gun or air gun, or we got a licensed gun, and you have a licensed son, at this age to own your own gun. Go ahead and brandish your own gun in the virtual classroom. That's okay. Then he still won't answer that question. I notice he ain't answering that. He did like the slick Allen Iverson past Michael Jordan crossover on the conversation. It's like, just answer the question. The fact that he hasn't answered the question yet, but it's a great conversation on Twitter, though. It's actually kind of a nice back and forth, and it's all in good spirit, I hope, well, at least on my end. But I need to bring Rashawn on to talk more about it. But I would love to get people's thoughts on that. But I just think it's just like, don't set a standard so we're not also complicit as parents, as like grown people, adult people, and elders of the community. We're not like we're not also complicit in the setup, because we can be complicit in the setup too by not like setting that just certain kind of basic codes of conduct. I mean, to me, it's just common sense. Like, why are we going all the runaround on the conversation? But some people will do that. Like, just because like suddenly everybody's having a woke moment about white supremacy doesn't mean that we can't raise our kids properly. You know what I mean? Or doesn't mean we can't like impart like basic standards of conduct or basic rules of the road. You know what I'm saying? Like, just because everybody suddenly is, I mean, y'all should have been woke before. Like, when people was trying to get you woke, like Francis Cress Welsing and them, and Hakeem Adabudi and all of them cats back in the 70s and 80s, y'all thought they was French. You know what I mean? Now everybody all woke. Everybody like, white supremacy. I know white supremacy. Ooh. Like, it's the buzzword of the day. It's like, nah, like, this stuff's been going on for a long time. Like, and back when we was trying to tell you, or trying to get you to pick up like the ISIS papers, I was like, oh, that's that black stuff, that's fringe. You don't want to read it, you didn't want to hear it. Now, like, you think you like an expert on it without any, like, it's like with this whole thing about critical race theory, and people act, oh yeah, I know critical. No, you don't. Like, stop acting like you do. It's like the thing that happened with the white lady who was passing for black, who admitted it on Medium. And then, which was, she needs to be held accountable, is heinous in itself. But like, now you got these black folks out there because they got duped, or they having a woke moment, and then they're obliterating other black folks for something that the white woman did. Like, she did that. Like, I had nothing to do with that. Like, so like, I don't get it sometimes. I don't get folks who go to Cliff out of Connecticut. Who's calling for a reality check? Cliff, what's up?
Hey, Brother Charles, I guess I'm getting a reality check, man. You know, I'm thinking that we as black people, you know, even as it relates to the Bible, you know, we're all created equal with the American Constitution out of your city. You know, that's where they originated, right?
Yeah,
you
it
know,
goes out of our city.
of,
You're right about that, yeah.
You know what I mean? In terms of equality for everybody. But you know what, Brother Charles, that's not true. You know what I'm saying? And as far as America is concerned, the forefathers created and had the intent from back then. They were geniuses, according to white people, and their geniusness came from in terms of maintaining their white supremacy. And I'm saying that to give you a good example is the Electoral College. Now, you know, I'm just using that as an example now, you know, because here we go again. They knew that the population of this country will become diverse. And if you go by the popular vote, that the majority of people that are diverse will have the power. But they realized this, and so what they did, they created a system in your city again, in which people representing supposedly the population will have the power to determine who would be the president of the United States.
So let me ask you, Cliff, what do we do about that now, though? What do we do right now?
What I'm saying.
September 8th, what do we do right now about the Electoral College? September 8th, 2020, heading into November 3rd. What do we do about that now? No, you told everything you said is correct, but what do we do about that now?
But what I'm saying is that, okay, to your point, we'll continue to vote. We'll certainly vote. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris ticket will win the popular vote. They will win. No guarantee about it. However, the electors that we vote for, again, this will be the first time in history that a president will be elected twice through the Electoral College, which is not.
We don't know that, but then
watch.
You know,
but
we don't know. Hold on, Cliff. We don't know that. First, we don't know that. Two, don't you agree, Cliff? I mean, Cliff, when you look at those Electoral College states, there's a whole cluster of those Electoral College states where there are high proportions, high percentages of black folks who live in those states and who should be registered to vote and getting ready to participate in this election now. And it's like, I feel like, the Electoral College is going to do what the Electoral College do. I don't like the Electoral College either. And, you know, maybe at some point down the line, we figure out a way to get rid of it. But right now, my thing is, like, black folks could be gaming the Electoral College. It's like, okay, so it's like you walk up on a chessboard which I've actually seen happen. And instead of like sitting down and looking at the chessboard and trying to learn how to play it, you're going to get, oh man, well, it ain't checkers. And then I've actually seen this happen. You know, like, all right, it ain't checkers. And then you just like trash the chessboard. Like, well, why don't you learn how to play the game, fam? Like, you know, don't get all irritated because you don't know how to play it. We're here to teach you. And that's actually, and I think that the black electorate is in a prime position to game the Electoral College, to leverage it. I honestly do.
What I'm saying, Brother,
I mean, the numbers speak for itself, and it's like, so I think that should be the focus of conversation right now.
Right. Well, all I'm saying is that the process was created, and there's no repercussions for them not to represent the will of the states. That's all I'm simply saying. So even though Philadelphia, Pennsylvania can be a blue state, or Biden and Harris can win that state, but those electors don't, and there's no penalty if they do not vote in December the will of the people. And that's simply what I'm saying. And then, and my last point is that you can do the research. In July of this year, they have a ruling that the electors must represent the will of the people, and they're having that now. So there's no penalty. So in other words, if I am representing,
their party, they have to vote along with they can't.
Exactly, but there's no penalty.
Yeah,
so
faithless electors, yeah.
Right, exactly. And so if somebody offered me $10,000 to vote for Trump, you know what I mean, and there's no penalty, you know what I mean, what am I going to do? I'm going to take the $10,000, and that's a process that's in place with no repercussions. Because why? Who benefits? Because white supremacists and those who accept or embrace that ideology, they're the ones. If this was President Obama and he won through the Electoral College and not the popular vote, all you think about, you got violence now. There'll be violence all over this country if President Obama won through the Electoral College and lost by the popular vote.
I get you. You're going back to, it was this July. We had some folks on to talk about it. Maybe we need to bring some more experts on. But Supreme Court ruling unanimously, actually, it was a unanimous decision of the Supreme Court that states, and this case came out of Colorado, states have the power to require presidential electors to vote for their party's candidate for president. So that's a requirement. Like they have to vote for the party's candidate for president. So anyway, but then there's some more specifics. It gets a little bit more nuanced, but I don't want to take up too much time. I got to go to break, but thanks for that, Cliff. We'll talk more about the Electoral College. But in the meantime, folks, learn how to game it. Like, let's learn how to game it, leverage it. So, because there's an opportunity to do that. And then, after the election, we'll get to the point where we talk about, okay, well, we need to either reform this dramatically or we need to do away with it. And how do we get, but right now, I think the discussion needs to focus right now on how do we get through this moment? How do we play it? And I think that there's an opportunity to do just that. All right, let me take a break, and when we come back on the other side here, we're going to actually still open phone lines. Yeah, phone lines are open, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are open. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
The Word Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on Word Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the Word Radio newsletter. This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD. This is Word Radio. 96.1 FM. And 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
Welcome back to Reality Check. Phone lines are open, 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let me go to Sister Murray out of Northern Liberties calling for Reality Check. Sister Murray.
Hey, how are you, Charles?
Hey, what's happening? How are you doing?
Hey, I hope you had a great weekend and a wonderful holiday, a well-rested one.
I think so. Yeah, I caught up on some tennis. Yeah, I caught up on some. I was playing some tennis this weekend. It's been a while since I got back on the court, and it felt good. But go ahead.
Awesome. I wanted to make a comment on the young kid who was on the Zoom with his class with a gun, and yes, it's not a part of the solution. You're a part of the problem. And again, It starts at home. If you're not there monitoring your kids, I don't care what age they are, you're not there monitoring whether he thought it was cute or not. But we have to set standards, boundaries, and we cannot. Our children have been through enough. This 2020 has been a disaster. Our parents have been through a lot. Our grandparents have been through a lot. The world has been through a lot, and we're still going through a lot. You got people that are homeless. You got people that are hungry. You got people that have no money. You have loss of jobs, loss of business, and they're playing around with people's lives with this money thing, with the unemployment thing, and the craziness is going on with $1 billion going on all these $1 million companies, and everybody then got paid, and everybody is shutting down and cashing in and taking their money and filing bankruptcy and doing all this crazy stuff, and yet and still we're still faced with the devil. The devil, number 45. The kid who's going there with the gun, it should not be tolerated, and they need to do whatever they need to do because we cannot have our kids trying to learn and being distracted by something stupid like that. And the parents should be held accountable, too. We have to start being very stern and strong about what we will tolerate when it comes to our children. It's bad enough they got bad schools and bad education, and the teachers are afraid to teach the kids. We don't need that. That's the last thing we need is kids jumping on there with their little toy guns or if they're real guns. We don't need none of that. Charles, thank you so much. You guys are wonderful. I love your show, and everybody on there is awesome. You keep doing what you're doing, and keep getting your membership. We need this radio station, and don't stop. Love you. Take care.
Love you too, Sister Murray. Thank you. Appreciate you. Let me go to Bill out of Lansdowne, who's calling in for a reality check. Bill, what's good?
How you doing, Charles?
How you doing, sir?
You know, that's what's wrong with social media, man. Too many smart people. You know, I mean, for people to be pushing for the electoral college is the black folks' best friend. We constitute the highest population in the electoral college versus the nationally. So if we got rid of the electoral college, we would have no voting. We would have no leverage. Our leverage would be lessened greatly. Hispanics would be the major players in a national election.
Thank you.
Probably
Thank you
never
for saying
see
that.
another black president. But the problem is these smart black folks, they woke, and they get on their social media and they lose their common sense and they become, you know, woke. That's just insane. Again, let me just tell everybody to the audience, and I heard a couple of brothers talking about getting rid of the electoral college, which is insane, because it helps black folks. We have the highest population rate in the electoral college states, swing states, versus nationally. So we went nationally, our population rate would be, our voting leverage would be lessened. Again, so the electoral college I never want to see it go away. It's our best friend. But these people get on these social media and they lose their common sense, so they want to sound like they're knowledgeable and they want to sound like they're woke. It's insane. So listen, the brother that called, tell them to research what I'm telling them. So you just imagine getting rid of the electoral college. Man, you wouldn't even have, first of all, they wouldn't even come into the Pennsylvania. There would just be a national race, and the Spanish would be the major players, old white people. And
then we're going to get mad.
So
we're going to start getting mad.
College, think before you call them with that kind of nonsense.
Yeah, you gotta read up on it.
Right. Thanks, Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Bill. I appreciate it. You're right. He's right. I mean, because then you're going to get into a situation and you're all going to be mad. Like, I'm looking at the little Latinos. They're taking it all over. Like, which, you know, it's fine. I mean, if we're all teaming up and we all on the same team in that respect. But, you know, you just look at the numbers. Just look at, and we've had this discussion before. And in fact, we had one of our contributors who, G.S. Potter, mapped this out. She crunched the numbers on this. I mean, she was like the first, and it's an exclusive on our companion magazine for Reality Check WRD, the B Note. And I may need to repost that somewhere for people to read. But she did like a few analyses on how, like, you know, you have the places where you have high concentrations of black residents leading to potentially high concentrations of black voters are places that can be, it's like the Electoral College becomes an HBCU. And so, I mean, kind of a preview of this in some respects is like how the primary worked out in like key states that, you know, Biden needed in order to become the nominee and to end up beating Bernie Sanders. And Bernie failed to, you know, he spent all those years since 2016. Bernie had ample opportunity to do significant outreach to black folks in key states, right? And so, you know, and those key states, you know, they're clusters where there are clusters of black folks. You know, you also, some of those states happen to be places where you have a high batch of electoral college votes or electors. And so, or EVs as they call them, electoral votes. So it's like, you know, just like when you see the chessboard, don't get angry and frustrated because you don't know how to play chess and then you just take your arm and just throw all the chess pieces on the floor. No, you just sit there and you learn how to play it. That's all. That's all we're saying. And that's the thing with the electoral college conversation. Mr. Bill makes a spot on point. Let me go to Maurice out of Southwest, who's calling in for a reality check. What's up, Maurice?
Charles, I never seen somebody flip-flop so fast in a few minutes like you just did.
How'd I flip-flop?
You just said you wanted to get rid of the college, and now you're talking about the benefits of it.
I think at some later point, yes. I still stand by that. I'm talking about right now. I still stand by that statement. I didn't flip-flop because I've said that time and time again. No, I didn't, Maurice. I'm saying right now we need to focus on leveraging it.
Charles, I want to
focus on leveraging it right now at this moment. At some point in the distant future, Maurice, of course, we need to get into a conversation to either reform it or eliminate it if it all works. But that doesn't mean I'm flip-flopping. It just means I'm just trying to get people focused on right now.
All right, Charles.
So what's your question? What's your comment?
Well, no, I want to move on about the story that you told about the young boy.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know what? The best way would have been to handle that. But see, with this white thing going on, this Trump thing, we'll call it the Trump phenomena that's going on, is that he should have been pulled in to the office. A counselor and his parents should have brought in. No police involved at all. It wasn't a real gun. And had that handled that way. Now this boy's going to travel all through his school years. It's going to be on his record. And they're not going to look at toy. They're not going to look at a game piece. All they're going to see is the word gun. And it's going to follow him until he graduates.
Yeah.
See, I know how that goes. Because if they put something on your record, it never goes away. And this boy's going to be vilified all through school. They were wrong for doing that. The cops did not need to be involved in that situation. Now I'd like to go to the commissioner, okay?
Yeah.
Jacob, one of the great callers. Tyrone, great caller. But let me ask them this, or you can ask him. If she was a white woman, would they be saying the same thing? She got to get her time in, and she don't know what's going on yet. I'm pretty sure if she's a white woman, they'd be wanting to railroad her out of here. Everybody worries about color and gender. No, we want somebody in here to do the job. That's all. I don't care if you're purple. We want you to stop the violence. We don't want to hear about that you got to learn the job, because they got plenty of qualified people that's already in the police department, and also black females that know how to do the job, that know the streets of Philadelphia. So all these excuses are totally ridiculous. Now, I want to close with this one, Charles. The black church is starting to become the black city council. Why are they promoting for the Sixers to have a stadium? You know, they had a thing on 29 where the black, they're supposed to be, they had the clergy, I didn't get his name, walking with the camera solely on him, talking about all the jobs that a new stadium will bring. But how many times have we heard that promise?
Yeah, we've heard that. We've heard that a lot of times.
That we're going to get jobs. And well, we're not going to get a job in the Sixers organization. We're not going to get any jobs building the place. And we're not going. And the main thing, what we're going to get a job selling fries at the game, or part of the janitorial service. Let's be for real. Why is the black church invited? They don't deserve no stadium, and that's tax money out of our money. That money could be used in the black community. We don't need to be building no luxury suites for some white people from Jersey to come over here to watch a game. We don't need that. And I'm upset that I don't see more of the black clergy in City Hall talking about the crime and the violence, and why the biggest thing that's more important than the crime that people's going over people's heads. Why, before COVID came in here, we only had 2.5% black businesses in this city, but we're 41, 42% of the city. Why is that? That is insane. Now, we're probably under 1% because of the COVID, and you're wondering why people are killing each other in the street, because they don't have no job, they have no hope, they have no future. That's why all these murders. That's why women and children are not excluded from this mayhem. And if you wanted the police commissioner to really do her job, I'd like to see some more mobile units out in the street. You know, I like to see more cops on motorcycles and bicycles in my neighborhood, because I can walk out there right now with my butt on fire, and no, I have to depend on a person on the street to put me out, because there ain't nobody out there. There's no cops in my neighborhood. So y'all need to concentrate on that and stop calling up here because she's a black woman kissing her butt. I wanted her to succeed, but she's not getting any help, and she's not qualified because she was white. We be trying to get her out of here, so tell the truth.
No, I think you raised a real good point. That is a good question, Maurice. I wonder about that. I worry about certain elements within the police force itself, certain folks who felt like they or one of their colleagues should have had the job over her, someone who was internal and local. And maybe, I don't know if they're doing this intentionally or maybe unintentionally because they're still in their feelings about it. They're not doing the jobs they're supposed to do. I do wonder about that. I can only right now, it's just pure speculation and theory on my part. But we want that at the end of the day, we want the police commissioner to succeed, whomever it is. You want that, especially in a time like this. So all of what we're saying here is not to give the police commissioner a hard time simply because, you know, we're upset and we're frustrated. Well, at least not coming from me, and I can tell coming from Marisa as well and others. I don't know about some other folks out there, but you want your police commissioner to succeed, particularly in a moment like this. It's just that is everyone on the same page about that in this city? Let me go to Felicia out of New Jersey, who's calling in for a reality check. Felicia?
Hi, Mr. Ellison. How you doing?
How you doing?
I'm very good. I mean, in terms of Police Commissioner Daniel Outlaw, the same way with Rochelle Blau, everybody has to rally around these sisters, and I don't see that happening. I really don't. And just you are speculating about whether the police are trying to thwart her or undermine her her authority. I think it's true. I think it's true because I don't, you know, one thing I know for sure is white folks will be white sooner or later, and this is exactly what you're seeing. You're seeing white males be white, okay? This is a referendum on blackness, period.
Yeah.
It happened to President Obama, you know, for those self-respected Negroes that are in City Hall, you know, they really need to get it together. Rally around this sister. Rally around her. What's the problem? I don't understand what's wrong with us. I really don't understand what's wrong with us. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is, I know Wednesday, the city of Philadelphia is saying that they want to have the homeless encampment removed. Where are they going to put them? I see every day I drive past this encampment on my way to work, and I'm driving down Vine Street, and I see a beautiful building that's vacant, which is the Family Court of Philadelphia, sitting vacant, weeds growing up. Why can't you put them or house them there? Why? I mean, it's absolutely disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. You have a beautiful building that can be outfitted to house that many people, plus more. So what is the city of Philadelphia going to do when they cannot move these people peacefully? What's going to happen? I mean, where are they going to go? What are you going to do? I just don't understand. It's just really disheartening to see the drive every single day.
Here's what, and to that question that you have, Felicia, this is what at least the city officials are saying on record. All right. Like the city had apparently established, I think it's like 260 rooms in what they're calling COVID prevention sites, and their hotels, right, to house individuals who might be at risk for COVID, including those 65 or over. There's also a pilot for something called a tiny house village. There are these new, I don't know if you've seen these, the tiny houses.
I heard you speaking about that on your show,
Yeah, which I want to talk more about that because I think it's actually some tiny houses. I've seen some designs like it's like I want to buy a tiny house. I don't know if my wife, if she'll let me, but yeah.
Probably not going to go for that.
I mean, now I think they're a little expensive. They're a little pricey because I mean, the little tiny houses they're asking for like $90,000 to $100,000. But anyway, that's another conversation. But and then there's this rapid rehousing program with up to 2 years of rental assistance. So there's some plans that they're putting on the table, at least from what we're hearing on the record. But obviously, something's not right with. I'm not privy. You know, I'm not like involved internally in those negotiations between the people that are at the encampment and the city officials. You obviously that's not a sustainable situation there. I mean that has to be resolved. You can't have people like there, but you got to figure out a better way to go. Like to your point, Felicia, there's space in the city. Like come on, like figure it out.
There is space, and I'm sure good white folks don't want people housed in the Lowe's Hotel. Downtown. Of course, that's not going to happen, but it could. You know, you have to stop dealing with people that are on the margins like they're pieces of, gum on the bottom of your shoe. You know, the least of us. If you treat the least of us like this, then what then what kind of humanity do you have for the rest of us? I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. The other thing I wanted to mention, too, is the violence in, these neighborhoods here. Listen, if y'all going to keep complaining about the police need to do something, that's your neighborhood. You live there. You pay taxes on that. You know the families. You see these boys walking up and down these streets every single day. You mean to tell me don't nobody know nothing? I find that to be very strange because I live in a neighborhood like that. Okay.
Yeah. And
from what I see is the pathology of us that we don't want to, get out there and say, you know what, let's have some NIMBY. Not in my neighborhood. White folks can do it. They don't have all this foolishness on the corner in their neighborhood. Why can't we have some pride about us? Stop throwing trash on the blinking street. Pick it up.
Yeah.
Pick the trash up.
I feel like,
maybe these fools
some people want to say that's. I agree. Like, some people want to say, oh, that's respectability politics. Or I got somebody on Facebook saying, oh, that's bordering. One person is on Facebook here talking about, oh, it borders on class warfare. I grew up in the same kind of neighborhood. And I mean, just because you work in a working family or low income doesn't mean that suddenly like common sense or just like keeping the basics in order, like just completely just falls out of your mind. That it's like that to me, that's a weak argument. Respectability politics. Oh, that's class warfare. So basically you're saying like black folks on any level don't have the right to just like live in decent, clean neighborhoods. Like we should just go ahead and throw trash. Us picking up trash in front of our house, in front of my row house in North Philly. When I had to at first I used to get annoyed when my grandmother, my folks would force me to do it. You need to clean up the trash out on the sidewalk. And I'm like, well, how come the other neighbors can't do it? No, you need to do it. You need to learn. And then I finally, after a while, I understood where they were headed with that. It's like, but it's basically we're us, saying, oh, that's respectability. Like we're falling into that same trap. And no, just because we're in black communities, black neighborhoods, low income, doesn't mean that we should accept trash on our streets or certain kinds of conduct on our streets. We deserve safe, clean neighborhoods too. Full stop. Regardless of what kind of neighborhood we live in, or what kind of houses we live in, or what kind of apartments we live in. Like standards, just as a kind of just basic standards. Like just because white supremacy, all that stuff is there, yes, and we have to deal with it, and we got to tackle it, and we got to fight it. But no one said anything about like suddenly now that we're all collectively aware of white supremacy, like suddenly we just like we let everything else go. I missed the memo on that. Like really, like suddenly having that conversation about like what Felicia is saying about trash on the sidewalk or picking it up, that's class warfare. Or, like your kid acting trifling in a virtual classroom. I mean, I understand it's hard for a lot of folks out there. Some people are not getting access. The city has listened. It's taking some steps to make sure the kids are getting connected to the internet. They're getting the devices to get connected to the internet. So now, at the end of the day, the city can't be all up in everyone's household or up in their apartments trying to like tell you what to do or do it for you on how to make sure that your elementary school or middle school or high school kid is there, in front of the screen, doing what they need to do in this pandemic, this very rough, unprecedented environment that we're all in. That's up to you. That's not like Mayor Kenny can't just jump into the into the living room or into your kid's bedroom and tell you what to do. Like you got to do that or tell the kid what to do. You'll be like, I mean, some people are being really unreasonable here. Oh, that's class warfare. Like how's that class warfare? Just acting like, acting decent and acting right. That's not class warfare. Like that has nothing to do. That's not like no, that's not, Anyway, I mean, I did not get that briefing, that new memo. That's like a new thing. It is. It really is a new thing. And maybe forgive me for being old school here. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I'm too old school for some people's taste. Maybe I haven't caught up with certain things. But folks are going to have to get it together. You're like, anyway, before I go on and miss the break, But I think it's a good discussion. It's a neat discussion. We do need to have that discussion. So let me take a break. We come back on the other side. We'll be talking with Beatrice Beckford. She is the Senior Campaign Director of Youth Justice at Mom Rising, juvenile justice expert, and we're going to discuss the school to prison pipeline here on Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, Word TV, Word app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Weather and traffic to keep you informed for your drive home in the happy hour with Sincerely Sarita. Monday through Thursday, 4 till 7 p.m. Right here on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
How do we make sense of our nation's history with race, privilege, and inequality? On Thursday, September 24th at 6 p.m., join Pulitzer Prize-winning author and Harvard University historian Annette Gordon-Reed as she discusses the challenges of wrestling with America's complicated past. This free virtual event is part of the Museum of the American Revolution's Carl M. Buchholz lecture series. Tickets are free, but registration is required at amrevmuseum.org or by calling 215-253-6731.
No fear, just facts. WURD. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, let me take Lloyd out of Hamilton calling in for a reality check. Lloyd?
Yeah, how you doing? Yeah,
what's happening? All right, what's happening?
Yeah, great conversation. You know, when I turn to the station, man, I always get good information, man. I just want to, definitely thank, everybody at the Word Radio station.
Mm-hmm.
When I came in, you guys was talking about, like, the young child that was incarcerated for having the handgun. I mean, not the toy gun. I just, me, myself, man, I have come to grips to understand that we're playing with two sets of rules. And it's been like this ever since the beginning.
Yeah.
And we have to realize that. So, I always default back to Maya Angelou's book, where she says anything that works against you can work for you once you understand the principles of reverse. So, we got to be very mindful that all we got to do is keep studying it. We dealing with people that had the affluenza kid who did the DUI, killed some people, and they made something up for him to have a disease called affluenza that he didn't know that he couldn't do what he did because he was rich. You know what I mean? So these are the same type of standards that we're going to be up against. They're going to always make something up. So, and that's what we're dealing with when we see 45 in office now. That's saying that anything that you say can and will be used against you in a court of law holds true until, stop right here, this man right here who does not know how to speak. So, I was listening to Word all morning, and I'm not knocking anybody, but the language that we use, I don't understand some of these words, some people are, but I do have enough sense to go get a dictionary and find out what it means. But the average person, we don't know the language. We don't even understand this language. So when we try to explain what somebody that doesn't even know the language too of another color to our people, it just sounds idiotic to me, because they're given silver spoons, privileges, everything, over and over and over again. The playing field is not level. So anybody, even in the government, to me, you know this, but you're still trying to play their game and play by their rules, which that's how it has to be. Because it's a lot of hidden history that we do not know. They never speak of the First Continental Congress, the Second Continental Congress. Those were original governments that we need to know about, because all of this stuff sprang from that. And it was somewhere where a capital was accosted by white men with guns and everything, and it was supposedly people of African descent that was in charge, and they threw them out of office. But we know that from Black Wall Street and all other different types of people of color trying to get together and make something. And, right now, we don't have anything, no hope. The psychological damage that's being done to our youth, sitting home, going to school, playing with a toy gun, and get charged with a crime that he's going to have to wear for the rest of his life. That is incredibly lopsided, but it's accepted because now you have a 17-year-old that's put in juvenile detention for killing people, walking down the street with an assault rifle, looking for it across, not even from there, and they're justifying that. Now, I'm going to end with this, man. See, I have a problem, and I know what that problem is, and I go get help for it. And a lot of the problems that I see people with privilege or whatever have, they're addicted to doing what they want to do. So they have a problem, and they need to get help. But we don't look at it like that, because if you're addicted to drugs, alcohol, or something like that, you have a disability. These same people have disabilities because, as we can very well see, 45 being able to take things to Supreme Court to fight for what he wants at the snap of a finger, when it used to take time, years. You're seeing a privilege in real time, people, real time from a person that does not know the law. And when he came in, he said, I know how all of this works. Democrats and Republicans called me. They called me for money. I gave it to them. When I called them for what I wanted, they gave it to them. Why aren't they asking about that? Who are these people you're talking about? You know, we got to wake up, man, and learn the laws, and we'll destroy all of it. We'll shut it down just like that. But we got to get off of the game they allow us to play. Hip-hop, entertainment, sports. Let's stop playing those games that they give us, and let's see what's really good and take it to them, because they not that smart. They not that smart. They learn everything from other cultures, and they stole it. But that's all I got, man. Thank you for letting me, talk today, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Lloyd. Thanks for those thoughtful reflections this morning. Or this afternoon now. We're now afternoon in the Tuesday edition here on Reality Check. I appreciate you, Lloyd. Thanks for calling in. Thanks for checking in. Let's bring on our guest. Beatrice Beckford is Senior Campaign Director of Youth Justice at Moms Rising. For more information, you can go to Moms Rising. It's Moms Rising, right? MomsRising.org. And Beatrice is joining us here on Reality Check WURD. Beatrice, how are you doing? Can you hear us? Beatrice? I think we might have... Beatrice? I think we might have lost her. We lost her. We'll bring her back. Beatrice Beckford, who is the... we'll get her back in a short order. We had a little phone issue there. She's Senior Campaign Director of Youth Justice at Moms Rising. We're going to talk about the school to prison pipeline. There's still on, definitely not diminishing or negating the existence of that. When we talked about that one case, for example, the young gentleman, the young brother out in Colorado Springs, because that exists, and that has to be. It's not even about trying to reduce it it has to be eliminated. But obviously there's a lot of conversation, a lot of debate around that. Beatrice Beckford is back on. Beatrice, hi, can you hear us?
Hi, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. All right.
Okay,
how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Excellent. So you've been watching this for quite a long time. You're a juvenile justice expert. Well, what they call juvenile justice. You're an expert on that. How bad is it, especially as we're becoming more and more aware of not just police violence, but also like this double standard legal system? It's like two different legal systems in the way that black children and white children are treated. But how bad has it gotten, especially when we talk about the school to prison pipeline?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the problem is very real. And I think, in the current climate that we're living in, we're seeing an increased awareness and, visual representations of the role that police play in our lives and in our communities. And we see the bias, we see the violence, we see the excessive force. And too often we don't see what that looks like in our schools, right? Kids are, the school-to-prison pipeline is real. The U.S. incarcerates in jails upwards of 60,000 kids, in any given year. And so, these kids are being pushed out of schools into the juvenile and criminal justice system and ultimately into the prison system. And so I think to, be interrogating policing in our communities the way that we are seeing people doing that now with the defund movement, we have to be doing that in our schools. And I think it's really applauding to see school districts like in Minneapolis and Oakland really move to remove police from schools, because there really is no data that shows that they actually keep our schools safe.
Yeah,
so
that was my next question too.
We're not that, because the problem is real, or definitely real.
Yeah, that was my next question too. Like because I haven't seen that, which means I guess it doesn't exist, right? I mean, the research that says that, oh, you know what? Hey, having these, what do they call them, school resource officers, police in the schools actually keep it safe. I'm just not seeing it, right? And then we've had actual like incidents, like what was the mass shooting that was in Florida, the really grisly one, where there was a school resource officer
Parkland, absolutely.
and he left. Yeah, Parkland. He left.
Well, yeah, one of them was in the closet, was actually literally hiding in the closet, and there were multiple breakdowns in Parkland. Oftentimes the pushback that I receive is, well, what about school shootings? And the reality is we don't know enough about school shootings. Our response to school shootings has not been to get at the root causes, right? The trauma that kids experience that make them want to attack these institutions, these community institutions, schools. It has been to add more police, to kind of add more fuel to the fire, for a lack of a better term. But the reality is we don't know enough about school shootings. We have kids going through, anti-terrorist style active shooter drills, and we don't actually know what causes them. While they are tragic and they're happening less frequently, so much more research has to be done to actually look at what causes school shootings. And I would argue that the reality is that we have far more police in our schools than we do counselors, social workers, guidance counselors. At least 5 states in the country report that they have more police in their schools than they do nurses. And so we have a problem of priorities here. We are funding our fear by putting police in schools and not funding what students actually need. What the data helps kids in schools. It's not police. They ain't it.
Yeah. Do we see like the impact that let's start with the school resource officers or police in schools, law enforcement in schools. Do we see the impact that has on academic performance, Beatrice? I mean, these types of conditions in these schools lead to worse academic performance, particularly from Black kids and brown kids?
Absolutely. Okay. I mean, what we ultimately find is police do what they're trained to do, right? They're trained to arrest, detain, these are the things they're trained to do. When they are assigned to the school resource officer, they don't go through a separate training, because there is no national or state-based standard for training for school resource officers. There are police officers, armed guards, law enforcement, private or otherwise, that are paid to basically police in schools. They're not there to be, while they get attached to different roles, right? Officer friendly gets to be the person who takes attendance, who gives late passes, who, intervenes if a student doesn't want to, is having some sort of an issue, right? And unfortunately, they employ the tactics that they're trained when they go to the police academy, which is to handcuff. This is why we're seeing, 6-year-olds being handcuffed. We're seeing, high school students body slammed down to the ground for asking for something in the office. Like, the reality is police do what they're trained to do. And if we want students to have what they need, we need to, hire people that are trained to work with them. And that's just not police officers. Schools that have invested in nurses, social workers, counselors, school psychiatrists do see better academic achievement. They see better relationships between students and teachers, and the school community as a whole is actually safer because social-emotional learning is invested in, because, student supports are in place, because teachers are trained, the school administration is trained to actually use alternative interventions for students that are trauma-informed. Police don't receive that training, and they're not able to do that because they're not trained to do that.
Yeah, I have heard a lot about, that space of trauma-informed education, and I'm seeing a lot of success with it, in a number of schools, whether they're public schools or publicly funded, so-called charter schools that follow that advice, hey, let's make sure that we're tailoring this the classroom, or we're tailoring the educational, the institution around
and it's not just for the kids,
circumstances.
It's for the teachers too.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
When you see schools employ social-emotional learning, trauma-informed, approaches to academics and to students, growth and development, it actually makes everybody in the school building better supports for each other.
Mm-hmm. Beatrice, tell us, so what are the elements when we talk about school to prison pipeline? We've been talking quite a bit about school resource officers, or the lack of trauma-informed education. What are the key, like when we talk about, or we mention the school to prison pipeline, what are we describing? What are the key elements? Are there the 3-4 core elements that make up a school to prison pipeline?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to look at racial bias, right? I mean, ultimately, policing grew out of that, and so it's no shock that police in schools, is a fulcrum for racial bias in the school building. It also happens with teachers that are not trained to kind of interrogate their own biases. So first and foremost, racial bias and racist funding practices, right? We see schools in communities that should be invested in, divested from, and instead those funds go to things like police. I think it's very easy to say, okay, policing, while it is a huge, huge factor in the school to prison pipeline because more police officers leads to more arrests in the school building, but it's also important that while we're interrogating a school to prison pipeline through the guise of police in schools, that we also vision what public education should look like for our children in a future that is both racially competent and racially accountable. And that looks like investing in student supports, right? It looks like elected school boards, right? Not just these mayoral appointed school boards that, are not reflective of the community. It looks like school leadership councils that are parents and young people. Too often we see these leadership spaces created and young people are not on them. High school students across the country have been advocating. Right there in Philly, you have the Philly Student Union with the defund campaign that they've launched, right?
Yeah.
Like young people have been leading this work for so long, and you could argue in Minneapolis, what pushed that over the edge? Yes, it was George Floyd. It was years and years of organizing by young people and by parents. And so, those factors, definitely policing, but also the way in which our schools are impacted by racist policies through funding, teacher licensing programs. We need more teachers of color, and the lack of that feeds into that racial bias in school buildings. And also just, what we constantly hear, right, the high stakes testing that actually, is not, it doesn't actually help to identify, the variety of ways in which students learn and allow teachers to kind of really teach material as opposed to teaching tests, right?
Yeah.
There's a whole host of problems with tests. So, the school to prison pipeline has been built, and, at Moms Rising, we say the preschool to prison pipeline because we have thousands of preschoolers on any given day that are suspended and pushed out of preschools.
Right.
So this problem, it's young. It's rooted in racism and racial bias. It's rooted in criminalization of kids, particularly kids of color, and even more so kids of color and students with disabilities. And so it's really important that we understand, that this is a pipeline that has been built over a long period of time. And this emphasis on criminalization is what is allowing it to kind of continue to funnel kids into the criminal justice system, and that police are essentially, deputized by the state to do that in our schools, and we have to be interrogating that and making sure that schools are not spending a significant amount, if any at all, of their funding, putting police in our schools when really what students need are, better. We're living in a pandemic right now. And so, kids need access to Wi-Fi, quality Wi-Fi, right? Kids need access to, technology and computer systems. They need, technology teachers and professionals to help them navigate this, digital landscape that education is now engaging in. And, the reality is that until we start to invest in things that we know support student development, instead of criminalization and cops and, policing in our schools that is deeply rooted in racism and racial bias, we're never going to break this pipeline. But I do feel hopeful.
How difficult will it be, Beatrice, while I got you for a couple more minutes, so it's going to be a really very dramatic shift, right? Because you have these school systems, these school districts, particularly majority black or urban school districts, they've been so used to the presence of or handling disciplining through police officers, through law enforcement. Suddenly they've got to transition to a whole new paradigm. How difficult will that be? And that, the other issue is, I mean, we still have to deal with, I know people like to always say, well, kids will be kids, but I mean, it's real. I mean, certain schools, the conditions can be unsafe. There's a high increase in things like cyberbullying, for example. There's increases, or there's the presence of bullying. I mean, there's still the whole mission of making sure that these are comfortable, safe spaces that children can learn in from K all the way to 12. And so, yeah, I get that, like, having the police officers there, that's excessive, and we need to just do away with that paradigm. But how do we ensure that we can still maintain self-protected spaces where the kids, all they're focused on is being the best students and scholars that they can be?
Absolutely. I'm a mom. I have two kids, two school-age kids, a boy and a girl. I'm a black mom. And so, I want schools to be safe. I believe that the vast majority of parents want schools to be safe. And I think that the reality is, whether we're talking about cyberbullying, which is a huge amount of resources, available for parents and for schools that definitely don't come from anything related to policing or the criminal justice system. It actually comes from, the CDC and mental health professionals. In looking at what school safety really means and really interrogating that as a nation, that when we do that, we actually are forced to look at the reality. And the reality is that what allows for schools to be safe in the ways that we think about, the things that we think of when we think of schools not being safe, which are oftentimes school shootings or fights or, the things that can blow up in a school building, are best served by people who are trained to deal with those types of situations. And those people are the social workers. They're the counselors, the teachers that receive training on how to, handle those situations the way that we used to back in the day. And I know that sounds like a very old lady thing to say, but it's very real. There's something about sitting down with somebody who you view as a leader in the school building, who has the training to engage you in a process of accountability, or even processes of accountability because things are going to happen. That we're employing those things that we know work, as opposed to taking the easy route, because police in schools are pushing students out and referring them to the court or the juvenile justice system is the easy way out. That's just pushing the problem aside. And if we really, as you said, are committed to seeing school environments where children can thrive, irregardless of whether they're in kindergarten or whether they're in the 12th grade, or whether they're dealing with all the emotions that come with adolescence, that they are supported in that way, then we absolutely have to be willing to do the hard work. And the hard work is trained professionals who are ready and willing, and we need to make sure that school districts are funding, counselors and not, slashing those budgets for the sake of funding SROs because it's easier. And we need to make sure that states across the country, including Pennsylvania, are making sure that Black and brown teachers are able to be licensed professionals and work in communities that they are deeply invested in, and who are there and willing and wanting to support the young people who come from communities not unlike the ones that they come from, and make sure that they're able to thrive too. If we really want to talk about school safety, then we have to do the hard work of understanding that safety has nothing to do with criminalization. It has to do with support.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, I like that. I like that, how we ended that, Beatrice. Not criminalization, but support. We've been talking with Beatrice Beckford. She's Senior Campaign Director of Youth Justice at Moms Rising, momsrising.org, juvenile justice expert, joining us here on Reality Check. Beatrice, we gotta have you back, so I gotta let you go, unfortunately. But really looking forward to having the next conversation with you about this topic.
Absolutely. Happy to come back. Thank you for having me on. And for anybody that's in the Philly area, Moms Rising is collaborating with the Philly Student Union on getting police out of Philadelphia schools and making sure those resources are invested in what students need. So join us. We need you. We can support Philly kids by doing what's right.
All right, absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate that work too. Appreciate that collaboration. All right, let's take a break. And phone lines are open when we come back. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Former Vice President Joe Biden.
We have to let people know we're listening, that we not only understand their struggle, but they understand the fact they deserve to be treated with dignity.
Senator Kamala Harris.
Part of the point of freedom is to be free from brutality, from injustice, from racism, and all of its manifestations.
But they're not getting a chance now.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have a real plan for police reform.
It means creating a national standard on use of force and conditioning federal funds for police departments on adoption of that standard. It's about giving the United States Department of Justice the subpoena power to investigate systemic police misconduct.
And that's what we're going to do. We're going to change that. I really mean it. I believe with every fiber in my being, we have such an opportunity now to change people's lives for the better. I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour workday, trying to work people more than 8 hours without overtime, trying to work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
Be heard. Be heard. Want another way to join the conversation? Follow us on social media using the hashtag onWURD. Be heard. Stay connected to Word Radio. Independent Black Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are open, so feel free to call in. Also, I'm at Ellison Report on Twitter.com. At Ellison Report on Twitter.com, you can see some of this conversation on. We started off kind of starting to touch on the school to prison pipeline. I was talking about this case out in Colorado Springs. These cases are popping up every day. There was a viral video recently, and that's why we brought Beatrice Beckford on, of a 8-year-old black boy being put in handcuffs and transported to jail by Key West, Florida police, and they were using it as a tactic to scare him. So there's a video of that. There's a video of the family, black family and kids being manhandled and cuffed by police in Aurora, Colorado. So, we see this happen all the time, and we've had it happen to us. It is not right. It is not right. But like I was saying, and it has to be stopped, and we have to tackle it, and we're going to have to tackle it head on. Only thing I'm saying is, and it's not even really so much adding an asterisk to the conversation, it's in no way diminishing the fight against that school to prison pipeline. All it's just saying is that, do the best that we can as adults, elders, concerned citizens, and parents of the community. Do the best that we can to give our young people, especially when we're in a position to do so. And this is not respectability politics. This is not class warfare. There's no class that had nothing to do with it. It's just like, when we're in a position to do so, give our children the best advice that we can give to help them navigate these racist spaces that they're in. Just certain things that they have to do, certain things, certain the setup is real, and it's ongoing every time they step out that door. So it's up to us Like, because I want, I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, I want my kids to come back home safe, unshackled, and alive. Okay. So, like, I mean, you can, like, tell, I can't tell people how to parent. Like, you can tell your kids all you want about, oh, hey, like, don't do the respectability politics and, like, go ahead and, yell at the top of your lungs when you get stopped at an officer when he pull you over. Like, I don't know, because I have two older girls who drive. I'm like, they're armed and you're not. I'm just like, I just want you to get back. I just want you to be home alive. I don't want to be getting a call. I don't want my wife, us getting a call that they ain't in a jail like Sandra Bland somewhere. I don't want that. So it's just like, it's certain rules, certain tips. Yeah, while, educating them on, hey, this is the racist world that we live in, that we have to navigate in. Like, yes, it's real. Having that constant conversation and that education with them, which is, much more important than telling, that is very important too, because, like, I don't hear a whole lot of people having them conversations about or setting up that household curriculum about the history that they need to know, like the Black history they need to know, and how all this came to be, while everyone's like in a woke space and being, very aware and conscious about white supremacy and things of that sort. Everybody's woke now. But, and you're telling, hey, you need to, yell back at, but, you got to have, like, that whole, at least for, in my mind, I mean, you've got to add the texture to that conversation. It's going to be a lifelong conversation. So that's all I'm saying. It's like, yes, the school was absolutely wrong for reacting the way it did, as was the local law enforcement. And so if I was the parents in that situation, yes, I would be. So you had no choice now. You're going to have to sue the school district, and you should sue the county sheriff's office too. You have to sue them, because you're going to have to get, because that's something that can remain on that young boy's record, and it will taint him for life, and it's going to remove him from a lot. It's already that the process has started, removing him from a whole bunch of opportunities. So they're going to have to lawyer up. They're going to have to get some, like, they're going to have to make the case high profile and put, I mean, they're already taking the first step. I mean, if they're in that situation, so now they're in that situation. So, that I would do the same thing if I was in that situation. We're going to have to respond. Got to get my kid out of that, get them out of that incarceration system, right? But it could have all been avoided, right? Like, it's just like, don't have your kid in the classroom with, I don't care if it is a toy gun, like, with a toy gun. Like, no, like, just, that's just, to me, that's where the common sense enters the conversation and the situation. And so, and we're going to have to, we're going to have to, and I know this is difficult, and I know parents are already worn out already from pandemic, but you know what? That's parenting. Like, is what it is. Like, I can't help you with that. Like, I mean, you're going to get worn out. You're going to make sacrifices in time and effort and money. That's what it's all about. Like, that's what, that's just is what it is. So, like, I mean, I understand it's frustrating. You got enough dealing with, there's some parents who still have the luxury of working at home, and then suddenly got to deal with, like, trying to manage their work and also trying to manage their child, trying to stay focused and learn in a digital environment. I did that 1 year with my 15-year-old. She went to a brick and mortar, and just so happens this pandemic hit, and so half her school year in the brick and mortar was virtual. And she was like, I want to go back to the online. She did well with it. There's some ways to it can be done. But I know it is, yes, it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of structure, and it takes a lot of discipline, more so for the parent in many respects than for the child. And so, and it's incumbent upon the parent, like, if we're in these virtual environments, we have to be vigilant as Black parents not to allow our kids to get set up, because they're waiting for that. They every time they set up a new environment or a new system or a new paradigm, it has been, we know that already. Like, we know that. So let's operate accordingly, right? And let's make sure that we're telling our children to act and behave accordingly when they're in these new spaces, new systems, new paradigms, the racist space, okay, and it's frustrating. I hear you. It's very frustrating, but this is what we're going to have to do. Like, either you want Either you want your child to be learning and getting the grade and getting through that system as unscathed and unmarred and unmarked and unbruised as possible, or you don't, or you want them to, like, you know, just fall off. And, you know, so you do the best that we can, right, to help them maneuver through it. And that's, I'm sorry, that's the case of, I'm not, in no way did I say that kid, that boy deserved that. He didn't deserve that. But that's a cautionary, that's all I'm saying, is a cautionary tale. It's a cautionary tale on, we have got to, especially with these new systems and environments that are very new for everyone, we have got to help our young people, our children, navigate through them. They're going to be leaning on us to do that for them, to help them with that, because they're not going to know automatically that they shouldn't do certain things, especially when they're in, say, for example, a virtual classroom. It's incumbent upon us. We're going to have to help. They're going to be looking to us to help them through that. So let's help them. That's all I'm saying. Let's help them through that. Let's help them through that. Let's not let them down. All right. And so to me, it was a little bit of letdown on that. I mean, in that situation. So it's not going to be perfect, and sometimes we will miss the mark, but let's try to get to the mark as much as we can in a situation like that. All right, that wraps this Tuesday edition of Reality Check. Thank everyone for listening and calling in as well, being the local subject matter experts and guests and everything. It was good. Great conversation. We'll be back for our Wednesday edition. We got The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders. That's coming up next here on WURD, so continue to stay tuned in. I want to thank Troy Wilmore, too. Welcome back, Troy, from your hard-earned 3-day weekend. Appreciate seeing you as well and putting up with me. And I appreciate Philly and beyond putting up with me too. Want everyone to stay sharp, stay smart, and more importantly, please stay safe out there. Stay safe out there, and have a great afternoon, good evening, and God willing, we will see you and talk with you tomorrow, Wednesday, 10 a.m. sharp. Take care.